Mom, you want to see me?
I saw you talking to that squatter boy.
Yeah, he's really nice. We're grabbing poffins together tomorrow.
I thought I raised you better than that. We don't talk to his kind.
His kind?
Water types. We fire types don't mix with water type. Pokemon.
Mom, what are you talking about?
You will learn that type chart.
Mom, you're scaring me.
And suffering will be your teacher. I didn't do this to you. Water types did. Never forget that, my son.
The Gen 5 moves tier list. You want it? It's yours, my friend. As long as you have, I'm gonna guess about 2 hours. I'm your host, Crocodile. And if it's Unova, you gotta call me in for consulting, okay? I've got the home field advantage. Some of these moves, they're so good. It's criminal. And some of these moves, they're so bad. It's criminal. Not gonna do that voice the whole time. Welcome to the Gen 5 moves tier list. I'm your host, Crocodile. Quick rundown of our criteria. When I say Gen 5 moves, I mean moves that were introduced in Gen 5, but we will be talking about how the moves have changed through the preceding generations at the time of recording 6, 7, 8, and 9. We're gonna be very generous in our rankings, so we're going to be considering the move in whatever context it's best, whether that be an in-game playthrough, singles competitive, or doubles competitive. So for example, Wide Guard here, this is a move that does basically nothing, in-game or in singles, but I hear that in doubles, it's pretty good, so we'll give the move credit for whatever context it's best in. We're very generous. What are the actual tiers? Well, at the very top we have meta-defining. This one is pretty self-explanatory. These moves are so powerful, you would use the Pokemon that have them because they have this move. These moves literally warp the metagame that they appear in around them. The best of the best. Under meta-defining, we have staples. These are your solid bread and butter moves. The ones that you're never upset to be using. We're talking about Flamethrower, Surf, those sorts of moves. Ones that see widespread usage, but they're not necessarily like, whoa, I gotta have this move, oh. Signature moves are a bit difficult to rank. When we talk about signature moves, we're gonna be asking ourselves 2 questions. One is, does the Pokemon that actually gets the move use it? And 2 is, would other Pokemon use the move if they could? An example would be Lugia. Lugia's signature move is Aeroblast. Lugia doesn't actually use Aeroblast, but Aeroblast is really good and a lot of Pokemon would love to use it if they could. The niche tier. This is where the commenters start to get really pedantic. Oh, why is this move a niche? When I say niche, I mean that this move has some serious use somewhere. It's like slightly above being a gimmick meme move, but not by much. Then we have filler. Filler moves are mostly moves that you would see in your in-game playthrough and they just get replaced later. My example would be Tackle. Tackle is not a great move. You generally want to get rid of it as soon as you can, but at the same time, it's not useless, right? Everybody uses Tackle because you sort of have to before you get anything better. It's filler. And at the very bottom, we have the useless tier. These are moves that have basically no serious application. Their main use is in zany Pokemon Showdown videos where you destroy some legendary spammer with, I don't know, Wonder Room. Spoilers for Wonder Room's placement, I guess. Disclaimer that I'm mainly a singles player. I really don't like doubles, and I think VGC is an absolute clown fiesta format. So I don't actually know anything about doubles, so I guess that's what the chat is for. Will you take Pokemon Go utility into consideration? I should mention this. This is mainline games only, so we're not considering spin-offs, and we're not considering mobile filth like Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is not a real Pokemon game. Pokemon Go ruined Pokemon, and you can't convince me otherwise. No, we won't be considering Pokemon Go. Obligatory, if you like what you see, be sure to shell smash that like button to help increase the reach of the video. Thanks for watching. Should we just leave shell smash here? And although Gen 5 didn't introduce any new evolutions, you have the opportunity to evolve into a Patreon with the link in the description. Thanks as always to all of the Patreons for, let's be honest, subsidizing the channel when we do niche stuff like ranking Gen 5 Pokemon moves. Thanks for your support. We'll be doing the rankings in alphabetical order, so first up is Acid Spray. It's really hilarious to compare this move to Acid without the spray, because Acid sucks. Acid is 40 base power with a 10% chance to drop special defense by 1 stage. Meanwhile, Acid Spray, the exact same base power of 40, however, it's guaranteed to drop special defense by 2 stages. Whoa! Res in shambles guaranteed. So a 10% chance to drop special defense by 1 stage, that's horrible. A guaranteed sharp special defense drop, that's actually pretty useful. 40 base power poison is about as bad as it gets when it comes to being an actual damaging move. But this is basically a stat debuff that you can't taunt because it damages you. After a sharp special defense drop, any subsequent special attacks from either you or your partner, it's gonna do a lot of damage. I think people use this in raid battles, but those are basically unplayable, so I'm not sure how much credit to give that. We'll pretend we live in the utopia where Game Freak is actually competent, and you can actually do the things that you paid for in the game, so we can go ahead and give Acid Spray niche for that, I think. It's incredible how much stronger the move becomes after you tack on the word spray. Apparently in Japanese, it is not a spray, it's a bomb, which I guess makes it spherical, and that's why Chestnut stays winning. Can't Acid Spray Chestnut! Based and bulletproof pilled. I guess if it's a bomb, we can play this.
Bombs? You want it? It's yours, my friend.
People say we have too many graphics. Although really, when I hear the word bomb, at least at the time of recording, a couple other things come to mind. Acrobatics! Actually, I'm a crocodile. Acrobatics. Really, really good. It's a 55 base power physical flying move, 100 accuracy. If you have no item, then the base power doubles to 110. That's really good. However, having no item is a serious drawback. However, you can build around that. In Gen 5, when this was introduced, you could activate it with a flying gem for disgusting damage, and this would also activate Unburden for Pokemon that had that ability and need to actively lose their item in order to gain the speed boost. They immediately nerfed this because it was way too good. It's still worth using on Pokemon that intend to drop their items somehow during the battle. Very powerful, and also as a flying move, it shares a unique trait with many other flying moves of being able to attack anywhere on the field in triple battles. Remember those? As a Gen 5 Pokemon, I could never forget. I would say that Acrobatics soars into staples. Really solid move. Acrobatics is especially good in-game when having no item is sort of the norm. It's kind of a hassle to equip items in-game. You might even have good ones. So you may as well run Acrobatics. Cool. How does Acrobatics compare to Brave Bird? I'd say Brave Bird is overall better. But Acrobatics has better distribution than Brave Bird as well. For most Pokemon, given the choice between Acrobatics and Brave Bird, you would probably choose Brave Bird. What MJDXP is saying is that, so you'll notice there's 3 emotes. There's Tsuchinokoin up, convenient, I'm sure you all know that one, and Tsuchinokoin down. And what you can do is, when I place something, you can agree or disagree using one of the emojis. If you think that the move should be placed higher, you can use Tsuchinokoin up. If you think that the move is placed perfectly, you can use How Convenient. And if you think that it should be moved lower, you can use Tsuchinokoin down. And that's an easy way for me to see what the sentiment of people is. And also, I guess people watching the premium can also see what the sentiment is. So like, we can practice. So Blue Flare, 135 base power, 85 accuracy fire move. I don't know. Doesn't seem that great to me. React with the appropriate emojis. This is a test because there's one you're supposed to use. Okay, well, Svancine's being a real funny guy. Okay, so yeah, that is how it's used. Perfect. It's not where Blue Flare's going. After You, this is a doubles-centric ability that allows you to pass your turn to your target. They then immediately get to act. In many contexts, like Fire Emblem, giving your turn to your ally is really, really good. In Pokemon, it is not quite as good. A large part of that is this move not having any priority. This would be a lot better if you could jump through speed brackets and then have your ally act, but that's not how it works. You actually need to naturally move before your partner in order to give them a boost, and then you have to also be faster than your enemies. A lot of conditions for a move that doesn't do any damage. It's just meant to make your ally move first. There's just way better ways to manipulate turn order than After You. Generally, it's better to reduce the opponent's speed with a move like Icy Wind, or to just completely invert speed with Trick Room. Apparently, this has a very cheesy interaction with Focus Punch, where your partner starts focusing, and you're just so polite, After You, and then they punch the enemy. Really funny, but I wouldn't say practical. One of the easiest ways to make this move a lot more viable would be to have it on a prankster Pokemon, because prankster Pokemon get priority on all non-attacking moves, and not a single prankster Pokemon gets After You, which is unfortunate. I still think that it's not quite a total meme. We can put it in niche. I think this move is close enough to Quash that we should talk about Quash, because Quash is the incredibly rude After You. Instead of raising up your allies, it puts down your opponents. I bet a lot of players actually learned the word Quash from Pokemon. Notably, the very rude Dark-type Murkrow is up to a bit of mischief. They're a prankster, and they get Quash. I guess I never actually said what Quash does. Quash causes the target to act last in the priority bracket. And Prankster Murkrow can use this to suppress a target until the end of the turn. Although, usually, again, you would rather manipulate speed in other ways. Murkrow notably can Prankster Tailwind, which is sort of just a way better version of Quash. Like After You, I wouldn't quite say it's useless. We can put them together. Quash should probably be higher, right? After You. Quashed. Ally Switch. In the premium, you can't see this, but Ally Switch's tiering has changed like 4 times, so we're literally using this move. And I was a Horde player anyway, so I don't know anything about allies. Anyway, what Ally Switch does, it's a multi-battle specific move, and it allows you to swap positions with your ally. In doubles, obviously just swap with your partner, and in triples, RIP, you could swap with the adjacent Pokemon. So not the center Pokemon, you could just swap the Pokemon in the back. Has +2 priority, apparently. The main thing you would do with this move is trip up your opponent's targeting, because suddenly they're hitting Shedinja instead! Whoa! This is essentially a really jank version of Follow Me, because that's what Follow Me does, guaranteed. Causes the opponent to target the thing they didn't want to target. And Ally Switch potentially does that, if you're good enough. So nice skill testing element. Used to be able to just spam this, but now it has a chance to fail when used consecutively, just like Protect. Having considered the previous placements people complained about, I think we're gonna put it in staples, We actually put Follow Me in meta defining, and Ally Switch is just worse Follow Me. But Follow Me is really good. Ally Switch is kind of like dollar store Follow Me. And on that note, let's talk about Five Below Follow Me. Anybody remember that store? It's like a dollar store, except I guess 5 times as good. We're talking about Rage Powder. Rage Powder is literally Follow Me, but bad. Because there's more counterplay. Follow Me, you can't do anything. But Rage Powder, because it is a powder, it's ignored by grass types finally winning. And you can also, this is convenient, equip safety goggles, in which case Rage Powder does not affect you. Although the most well-known Rage Powder user by far is Amoonguss, this is actually a bug-type move because it's on a lot of butterfly Pokemon who also apparently have the ability to just incite rage by spreading powder. You'd think that they rated Nino 1 star on the internet or something. Follow Me is super, super good, so 5 Below Follow Me still probably lands in meta defining. It's literally just Follow Me, but with more counterplay. It's Follow Me that grass types can ignore, safety goggles users can ignore, and also overcoat users can ignore. I forgot to say that, so I'm saying it now. Autotomize. This is a side grade to Agility, I would say. Agility, the most hated skill in RuneScape, but generally pretty good in Pokemon, a +2 speed boost. Autotomize also gives you a +2 speed boost. However, it also has the effect of halving your weight, which is both good and bad. The Pokemon that get Autotomized tend to be very heavy, and by Autotomizing, they then reduce the amount of damage they take from low kick, which sometimes comes up. But it also means that conversely, you will deal less damage with Heavy Slam, which we're going to talk about later. Obviously, you know whether or not you're running Heavy Slam, so if you are running Heavy Slam, you wouldn't use Autotomize, you would rather use Rock Polish. Usually Pokemon that Autotomize can also Rock Polish. Overall, given the worst distribution, the fact that nobody really uses this except Celesteela, I think this is probably just going to be a niche move. Apparently Celesteela is so heavy that the weight reduction doesn't actually even matter that much. It's still heavy enough. I don't know anything about the Ultra Beasts. I hate them, so I just pretend they don't exist. That's how I cope with it. You mostly just care about the +2 speed. The weight manipulation very rarely matters. And when it does matter, it's normally a downside. Also, just thematically, this move is horrifying. It's like those jokes where, how do you lose 20 pounds in 2 days? Cut off your arm! Except, you lose half your weight instantly. Horrifying. Wow. The Japanese name is literally Body Purge. Body Purge. Did you know that every Japanese person can use this move? It's pretty sad. Beauty standards are out of control here. Bestow. I'm gonna give you a nugget of knowledge. Terrible. This is so bad. Bestow gives your item to your target. Why would you ever want to do that? This is essentially a really, really, really bad version of Trick. This is not even dollar store Trick. This is Temu Trick. Horrible. What makes Trick incredibly good is that it nabs the opponent's item and gives them yours. With Bestow, they have to already have no item if you want to give them a negative one. And if you're trying to give an item to your partner, here's an idea. Just give the Pokemon the item when you make your team! Bestow is horrible. I can't think of a single non-meme use for this. Useless. Okay, well, Weedle Twin Needle, the king of Giga Meme niche sweep videos, is here. And they're saying Bestow would be fire if you could bestow an extra item to your partner holding one. So they're describing a move that does not exist, and I'm assuming that means that this move is actually hopeless. Thank you for the input. So yes, if Bestow did something completely different, it would be good. Yeah, officially useless. Blue Flare and Bolt Strike. These are going to be really easy to talk about. These are the signature moves of Reshiram and Zekrom, respectively. They're kind of boring. They're very straightforward, but that doesn't make them bad. Quite the contrary, good ability. They're 130 base power, 85 accuracy, with a 20% chance to inflict their respective status. So 20% burn for Blue Flare, 20% paralyzed for Bolt Strike. Blue Flare is special, Bolt Strike is physical. Blue Flare is just a marginally better version than Fire Blast. I think it's better than Fire Blast in everything. Does more damage, is 5% more accurate, and I think has even a better burn chance. Does Reshiram use Blue Flare? Yes. Would other Pokemon use Blue Flare if they could? Yes. Any special fire attacker would love to have Blue Flare. Likewise for Bolt Strike, does Zekrom use Bolt Strike? Yes. Would other physical electric types use Bolt Strike? Oh man, they wish. At least fire types get Fire Blasts. Since we're already talking about the Gen 5 cover legendary signature moves, we may as well talk about the other ones they get. How come Game Freak lets you have 2 signature moves? In addition to Blue Flare and Bolt Strike, the cover legendaries also get Fusion Bolt and Fusion Flare. These are 100 base power, 100 accurate moves that have a special mechanic where they double in power if used immediately after the opposing move. And the combo happens whether you're allies or enemies. So for example, the enemy Zekrom can Fusion Bolt you, and then you can Fusion Flare them, and your Fusion Flare does double damage. Basically, you'll see this in the end fight, and then never again, because you would rather just use Blue Flare or Bolt Strike. It's cool that they have combo moves like this, it's just not really practical. Do the Pokemon who get these moves actually use them? Reshiram and Zekrom don't, because they have Blue Flare and Bolt Strike, but the Kyurem forms do not actually get Blue Flare or Bolt Strike, so they have to make do with the fusion versions. Would other Pokemon use these moves if they could? Well, electric types would definitely want to use Fusion Bolt. Please alternate fire and electric, sure. I hope you're happy. Bulldoze! This is something I didn't realize until I was putting together this list, but Bulldoze is one of a series of speed manipulation moves in Gen 5 that all have approximately 60 base power. There's like 5 of these. So we'll just talk about all of them now. Bulldoze is 60 base power ground, reduces speed by 1 stage. I believe it targets everyone on the field. Well, Weedle Twin Needle has a check next to the name, and they say Bulldoze is good for doubles, especially for self-proccing weakness policy on Clear Body / Pokemon under Trick Room. Could be useful for speed control too. Sure.
I trust you.
I trust you. That sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, we'll put that... That seems more than niche to me. Speed control is very important for doubles. Next in the series of roughly 60 base power speed control moves, we have Low Sweep. Sweep the leg. You got a problem with that? I'm surprised this is actually a fighting move and not a dark type move, because isn't this a pretty dishonorable attack? It's Instructor Resuvius's favorite move, and he's evil for sure. Well, apparently in Japanese it's called low kick. It's literally low kick. No kikku. Then what's low kick? Kitaguri. Kick down! Well, I hope that they take kick down. It actually seems like an unironically evil website. Low Sweep used to have 60 base power, which was really good because it meant that Breloom, who was a technician, could kick you and then put you to sleep. Or just kick you and kill you, because Breloom has 130 base attack. That made Low Sweep really powerful. However, that was only for 1 generation, because they then buffed it by making it 65 base power, which means it no longer works with Technician Breloom, which was the only place people ever used it. In honor of Breloom kicking your legs in Gen 5, we'll put it in niche, but for most of Pokemon's history, this is like a filler move. And you wouldn't seriously use this in competitive. We've seen a 60 base power speed control move. We've seen a 60 and 65 base power speed control move. Now let's subtract 5. It's Electro Web. A 55 base power special electric move that reduces the opponent's speed by 1. For some reason, they also subtracted 5 from the accuracy. Couldn't give it 100 accuracy, it would just be too good, so we balanced it by making it 95. You're clearly supposed to combo this with Electro Ball. Electro Ball does more damage the faster you are compared to your opponent, but nobody does that. What really makes this move usable is that it's spread. Just like Icy Wind, hits opponents only. The bulldoze hitting your ally can sometimes be an advantage if you set it up correctly, but it's mostly a disadvantage. It really reduces how you can use it. I think we would just put Electro Web with bulldoze. Double speed control is very useful. Also, apparently Weedle learns it, so it's OP. Can we get a fact check on that one? I think I said there were 5 roughly 60 base power speed control moves. I lied, because there are 4. There's one more we gotta talk about. It's Glaciate. Well, today you learned that Glaciate is a real move, apparently. This is Kyurem's signature move. In terms of the roughly 60 base power speed control move spectrum, it is 65 base power. It's basically Icier Wind. We'll put this in the signature move tier because it is a signature move. Does Kyurem use this? No. Would other Pokemon use this if they could? Yes. Basically, any Pokemon that uses Icy Wind would rather use Glaciate, but they can't because it's locked to Kyurem. Whoops. I think in Japanese it's called Frozen World or something cool. Kogoeru Sekai. Frozen World. Whoa! That's cooler than Glaciate. Frozen Throne someday, guys. Chips ahoy! I wish. Chip away. Filler tier is looking pretty lonely, isn't it? So Chip Away is a 70 base power, physical normal move, 100 accuracy, and the bonus effect is that it ignores enemy stat changes. So the enemy can defense curl 6 times, but whoa, you chip right through that. Enemy Pat Rats will hit you with this sometimes. That's about it. You're gonna need a lot more of a bonus effect than that to incentivize me to use a 70 base power normal move anywhere past like the 3rd gym of my playthrough. Getting real granular here. It ignores defense and evasion changes, both positive and negative, so anti-synergy with your Pat Rat's Tail Whip. And it doesn't even ignore non-stat change effects like Reflect. And in Generation 9 onwards, Chip Away cannot be selected in a battle. I'm sure Pat Rat's one fan is devastated. I'm also gonna call this move a flavor fail, because even though it's not strong enough to be worth using, 70 damage is definitely not chip damage. It's kind of a lot, just not enough. Dragon Tail, Dragon Tail. It's almost time for Dragon Tail, because we have to talk about Circle Throw first. They're the same, just type shifted. Really cool pseudo phasing move, 600 BST. They're 60 base power, incredibly negative priority, -6 priority, 90 accuracy, and they force your opponent out. These are both better and worse than the true phasing moves, Roar and Whirlwind. The counterplay for them is completely different. The counterplay for Roar and Whirlwind is either soundproof or suction cups, or you can taunt the enemy. Because Circle Throw and Dragon Tail are attacks, you can't taunt them because they damage you. However, because Circle Throw is a fighting move, you can't throw ghosts, not thrown. And because Dragon Tail is a dragon move, fairies can't be tailed. They also do not go through Protect, and they do not switch out enemies that have Substituted, which is something that Roar can do because it's like a sound move. But you also can't Magic Bounce them because, again, they are attacks. I think these both see widespread enough usage to qualify as staple moves. They're both nice ways to rack up entry hazard damage on enemies and also prevent them from just setting up willy-nilly. We of course have to mention the Riolu cheese that you could do with Circle Throw, because Riolu had a way to bypass the negative priority by copycatting the move. A Giga gimmick, not very viable, incredibly easy to counter, but very fun, so we should mention it. It's awfully convenient that following these pseudo-phasing moves, we get another one. This is like a pseudo phasing move. It's Clear Smog. This is a 50 base power special poison move. It's actually not 100% accuracy. It doesn't have an accuracy check, it just hits. It has the effect of removing all enemy stat changes, whether positive or negative. It's basically a one-sided haze. Just like with Circle Throw and Dragon Tail, the damage part is sort of incidental. The fact that this move does damage makes it an attack, which means that it cannot be taunted, which is usually good, but it also means that, because this is a poison move, it cannot affect steel types at all. Wiping opponent stat changes is very, very useful. I think Clear Smog is a very good move. We'll put it here. A Dundozo Terra steeled when I clicked Clear Smog and I cried. My version of that sentence is a Dundozo and I cried. Coil! This is bulkier up. It's bulk up. It gives you plus attack and defense, but it also gives you an accuracy boost. It says very limited distribution. It's basically on long Pokemon, mostly on snakes, but also Furret, who I guess is an honorary Gen 5 Pokemon because of Accumulate Town. Gen 5 was the first generation to introduce accuracy boosting moves. Accuracy boosting is kind of strange, because in order to benefit from accuracy boost, you need to run inaccurate moves. But you're not always going to be able to get your setup turn in, so then you run the risk of just missing. It also sort of has anti-synergy with setting up, because you can't just keep stacking accuracy. Eventually you're going to get to 100% accuracy, or close enough, and then the accuracy boost kind of does nothing. Milotic uses this sometimes to buff its hypnosis accuracy and benefit from the defense boost. This is basically just bulk up with much worse distribution and incidental upside. I think we'll put it in niche. Probably makes sense to also talk about Hoenn Claws, because I think Coil is strictly better Hoenn Claws. Hoenn Claws is Coil, except you don't get the defense boost, but it's on a lot more Pokemon. I think we'll just put Hoenn Claws next to it. Let's think about why you would want to increase your accuracy. It'd be to use a move with higher base power without risking a miss, right? But if you Swords Dance, you essentially get higher base power on all of your moves. So usually you would rather just use Swords Dance. I guess Hustle Durant might hone its claws. When you actually play Gen 5 in-game, you'll notice that a ton of enemies have Hoenn Claws. We're really trying to convince you to try and use this thing. You're not getting me. Cotton Guard. This is one of the rare moves to actually give you a drastic stat boost. That is +3. Increasing your defense by +2, which you can do with Iron Defense or Barrier. That's probably not worth it. Increasing your stats by +3. Yeah, I would do that. The Pokemon that get Cotton Guard become, I'm not gonna say unbreakable, but this is a massive boost to gain in just one turn.
Break yourselves upon my body.
Very strange flavor that Cotton Guard gives you more defense than Iron Defense. Maybe there's a lot of cotton. Because there is no move that gives you +3 attack in one turn, Cotton Guard is the only way to give you +3 attack with Body Press. Apparently Z-Splash gives you +3 attack, RIP Z moves. Is that a gimmick? I think I'd rather call it a bold strategy, Cotton Guard. Let's see if it pays off. Aren't I so funny? I'm making a joke that nobody's ever made before. I'm so sick of this format. Drill Run. This was introduced as a signature move for Excadrill. Ironically, Excadrill would never ever use this because you would just rather use Earthquake. But it's since been vastly expanded in distribution to be on lots of Pokemon with the capability to drill. Sarah Palin loves this move. This is 80 base power ground type physical with 95 accuracy and high crit. This is outclassed by both high horsepower and Earthquake, but ground coverage is so important that Pokemon that get Drill Run, but not the other moves, definitely use Drill Run, so I think this does actually count as a staple move. Just be careful, because if you use Drill Run too much and you run out of energy, you'll be forced to use Drill Walk. I love that mechanic. It's a lot of fun. Jagex, can we get the run energy rework, please? What is taking so long? Dual Chop! Not nearly as fun as Dual Wield! Somebody asked, why is this dragon and not fighting? It's because this was for the Haxorus line, and they have the axe theme, so that's why they're chopping. This is a double hit move, 90 accuracy. I believe it only checks the accuracy once, and then each hit is 40 base power. For the most part, the upside of it being a double hit move, meaning that it would go past substitutes, is not worth the accuracy drop and the horrible things that can happen to you when you make contact twice. I think you do want to sharpen axes on a grindstone, but if you double chop a rough skin or rocky helmet Pokemon, it is gonna hurt. For the most part, this is just worse Dragon Claw. I don't think you would use this in a serious context. It's just a filler move. Apparently Dual Chomp makes Axew one of the best starters in one of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, so no credit for that, but we will mention it. We'll be efficient and talk about Gear Grind, which is very similar to Dual Chomp in that it is a double hit move, although the numbers are slightly tweaked. Gear Grind is 50 per hit instead of 40, but it also pays for that with a 5% penalty to accuracy, so overall that ends up being a 50 base power, physical steel type move, hits twice, 85% accuracy. This is a signature move, actually. It is on the Clink line. I would forgive you for forgetting this move exists, or that the Clink line exists. I know that I try to forget every day. Does Clink use Gear Grind? I think so. Would other Steel-type Pokemon use Gear Grind if they could? Yeah, 100 base power is a lot. Notably, Gear Grind is not Double Iron Bash. They're different moves, and I do believe Double Iron Bash is better. I guess we'll talk about that in Gen 7.5, or whenever they added Metal? Is that it? Echoed Voice. 2 questions for you. First, did you know that this move existed? And second, did you know that this move is not round? There's another move called Round that is also like a sound-based, normal type combo move, and they were both added in Gen 5, and nobody has ever used either of these. Echoed Voice is in many ways similar to Fury Cutter. It's a normal type move instead of a bug type move. It is special instead of physical, and it's actually 100% accurate instead of 95% accurate. It has the same mechanic as Fury Cutter, where the power doubles on consecutive hits, although for some reason, Fury Cutter caps at 160, but Echoed Voice goes up to 200. As a normal attacking move, it's already at a disadvantage, because normal sucks. But as an early game filler move, yeah, I guess you would use that. 40 base power on the first hit is okay for early game. 80 from the second hit, that would actually be pretty good. And on turn 3 and beyond, wow, that's really good for early game. I'm sure that all of the future viewers will echo that sentiment. I wish we were playing Echoes, that's a good game. Round. In addition to this move existing, it actually has a really cool, unique mechanic that I don't think is on any other moves. Round starts off as a normal, special attacking move with 60 base power, 100 accuracy. And here's the special effect. Round inflicts damage, debatable. However, if another Pokemon uses Round before the user this turn, the user will use Round directly after it, regardless of speed, so you get a nice little leapfrogging effect. All but the first round within a turn will double in power to 120. Ooh. So clearly, this was meant to be used in doubles or triples where you can have one fast Pokemon start the round, and then you can have your slow Pokemon immediately follow up with extra damage. RIP triple battles. Oh, that's pretty funny. Apparently, it causes your speed stats to round up. I would imagine that most of you have never actually seen the round effect activate, as in seeing the extra power and the speed leapfrogging. Well, you're gonna see it now in the chat, okay? Because they're gonna use round after my line. Here we go. Now let's hear a round of applause for Round. Let's hear it for Round, and you can see their messages are all in caps because it does double damage. That's crazy. I even said the line wrong. Let's hear it for Round. Incredible. You've never seen Round before, and you're never gonna see it again, filler. Electro Ball. This is anti-gyro ball, but they're both balls for some reason. I believe the calculation for the damage is the same, but in reverse. So for gyro ball, you have to be a quarter the speed of your opponent for max power. And for electro ball, you have to be quadruple the speed of your opponent for max power. It is far, far easier to, I'd say min-max, but I guess min your speed in order to deal max damage with gyro ball than it is to max your speed and quadruple damage your opponent with Electro Ball. Good point somebody brought up. In general, Pokemon want to be faster, which makes it easier for you to be super, super slow and wreck them with Gyro Ball. Whereas all of those Pokemon attempting to be fast makes your Electro Ball weaker. Theoretically, you can increase the damage of Electro Ball by reducing your opponent's speed with something like Electro Web or by paralyzing them. But remember, they nerfed Paralysis, where it's now only a 50% speed cut instead of a 75% speed cut. That's also an indirect nerf to Electro Ball, which wasn't in a good place to begin with. I guess if you're Regieleki, everything else looks like it's moving in slow motion to you, and maybe you might consider Electro Ball, but even then, I don't think so. It's very difficult to get Electro Ball to a point where it's worth using over other electric attacking options. But it does do damage, so I think at worst it's like a filler move. Here's the exact table of how Electro Ball calculates its damage. All you really need to know is that it is almost never worth using. If we're really looking for stuff to say about Electro Ball, because it is a ball move, that means that it counts as a bullet, so Chestnut wins again, can't touch him. And because Cinderace is adept at wielding balls, you can Electro Ball Toxapex in the face. And Cinderace is fast and Toxapex is kinda slow, so that might do something. It'll definitely shock them, because I don't think they'd expect anybody to use Electro Ball. Apparently Alolan Raichu might use this move, since it does have synergy with its Surge Surfer ability, making it faster. But yeah, you would probably just use Rising Voltage, right? Because you're in electric terrain. Entrainment! Actually, I would consider this video entertainment. Entrainment changes the target's ability to your ability. Why would you want to do this? I guess to share a positive ability with an ally, or to share a negative ability with an opponent. Notably, and I'm really stretching the definition of the word notably, Truant Durant can entrainment to give Truant to the opponent. Is this worth using? No. Basically never. I'm not even gonna honor that by saying it's niche. It's useless. You can apparently entrainment with Normalize for some pretty funny results. Moves in Useless are allowed to be funny, they're just not useful unless you're trying to get YouTube views, I guess. In general, it's just not worth using a turn and a move slot to improve your ally's ability or nerf an opponent's ability. Useless. Fiery Dance. This was previously the signature move of Ulgamoth. I can't say its English name without getting demonetized. It has since been slightly expanded. I think Oricorio can also use some pretty hot steps, but for the most part, I think this still counts as signature. Oricorio, despite being a dancer, doesn't actually get to use this move, but I believe it does copy it with the dancer ability if Ulgamoth uses it. This is an 80 base power, 100 accurate, special fire move with a 50% chance to boost your special attack. That is extremely good. For the most part, losing 10 base power compared to Flamethrower, also losing the burn chance, in exchange for a 50-50 at increasing your special attack, absolutely worth it. Does Ulgamoth use this move? Yes. Would other Pokemon use this move if they could? Absolutely. Not strictly better than Flamethrower, but in most cases, worth using. However, in the modern day that we live in, at the time of recording Gen 9, Fiery Dance is just bad Torch Song. Because Fiery Dance is a 50-50 to boost, Torch Song always gives you the boost. This is not an indictment against Fiery Dance. Fiery Dance is still incredibly powerful. It's more that Torch Song is arguably the best move in the entire franchise. What were they thinking? Although, Torch Song gets blocked by Soundproof and Fiery Dance doesn't. Final Gambit. This is arguably the most misleading move name in the franchise because if you're running Final Gambit, this is the exact opposite of your Final Gambit. This is your plan. Just like with Last Resort, where if you're using the move, it's because you plan to use it. Final Gambit is a self-sacrifice move, kind of like Self-Destruct and Explosion, except you would use it in the exact opposite situations. Self-Destruct and Explosion are used, or really were used, RIP, nobody uses these moves anymore, since Gen 5 nerfed the defense cut effect. But Self-Destruct and Explosion were used to literally go out with a bang. You would get all the value you could out of your Pokemon with the 3 moves that weren't Explosion, and then once your Pokemon was almost dead, you would go ahead and press the big red button that would then remove your Pokemon and hopefully the enemy as well with a bunch of damage. What Final Gambit does is it deals damage to the opponent equal to your remaining health. And it kills you. So you actually want to use Final Gambit, not Final, first, when you still have a lot of health. For practical uses of Final Gambit, you would use this on Scarfed Victini. Victini has 100 base health, which is a lot, and if there's an opponent you just can't deal with otherwise, you hit him with the Final Gambit. That is, I think, the only practical usage I can think of for Final Gambit, but that is a real use. So I think that does qualify it for niche. Staraptor and Excelgor can also use Final Gambit somewhat effectively. And apparently Annihilate in VGC sometimes with Scarf. And Basculegion. Sure. As for mega meme usage, Shedinja does get Final Gambit. So if you want to knock an opponent down to their Focus Sash and then finish them off in stunning style, you gotta Final Gambit Shedinja them. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of Unova, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. Hey guys, it's been so long since I said this. I've known that since I was in elementary school. It's really weird that we do this, right, in America? It's such propaganda that you stand up and salute the flag at the beginning of every school day. Now that I'm an adult, I just think that's really weird. Yeah, and it includes Under God in the pledge. Can you believe that I, Crocodile, maybe am not an Arceus believer? Anyway, let's talk about the pledges, because there's actually 3. Fire Pledge, Grass Pledge, and Water Pledge. These moves combo with each other in different permutations based on which one you use. I'm apparently being challenged to see if I can name them without looking them up, so don't trust what I'm about to say now. I believe Fire and Water is, I think that's the Rainbow that increases secondary effect chances, it's like Serene Grace kind of. Fire and Grass, I think, is residual damage? It's like a burning field effect. Grass and Water, I believe, is a mire. It's like a swamp that slows everyone down. I think I actually did name them all from memory, so that's why you gotta hire me as your Gen 5 move consultant. Obviously, I, Crocodile, would know what I'm doing. I may have also looked all of these up, yesterday to prepare for this. These moves also deal damage, by the way, maybe I should have mentioned that. They used to only deal 50 base power, but they've since been buffed to 80, which is actually quite good. These moves are all the same aside from the type. They're all now 80 base power, special, 100 accuracy. Earlier when I said that Round had a unique effect, apparently I was lying, because the speed leapfrogging also happens when you take a pledge. For the sake of accuracy, I am going to read out the full effect of all of these and not just go from my memory. When two allies attempt to use Fire Pledge and either Water Pledge or Grass Pledge on the same turn, the ally moving first will not itself use a move, but instead the ally moving second will use a combined attack with a power of 150 and an additional effect immediately after it. If Fire Pledge and Water Pledge are used in the same turn, the ally moving second will use Water Pledge and a power of 150 and create a rainbow on the user's side of the field for 4 turns. The rainbow doubles the probability of additional effects taking place for moves used by that side of the field, including the chance of flinching caused by King's Rock and Razor Fang, but not including Secret Power. So we could just stop here because now the oaths are just useless. I thought it boosted Secret Power, I was wrong. This effect is cumulative with Serene Grace for chances to cause a stat change or inflict a status, but not for chances to cause flinching. Ooh. Due to the way certain secondary effects are handled, this can lead to an overflow glitch. Green glitches when. I'm not clicking this, okay? I just don't want to deal with it. Okay, MJDXP was nice enough to post the glitch, so I'll read what it does. If the user has Serene Grace and uses Charge Beam while its side is under the effect of the rainbow from the combination of Fire Pledge and Water Pledge, the additional effect chance for Charge Beam will overflow and become 24%. So don't use Charge Beam with the rainbow. If Fire Pledge and Grass Pledge are used on the same turn, the ally moving second will use Fire Pledge with a power of 150 and create a sea of fire. Actually, I thought this was with the Grass move. On the target side of the field for 4 turns, the Sea of Fire damages all non-fire type Pokemon on that side for the field for 1/8 of their maximum HP at the end of each turn. Wow, that's actually a lot. These are 2 unique effects you don't see on any other moves. And the one combo that wasn't covered by the other article. If Grass Pledge and Water Pledge are used on the same turn, the ally moving second will use Grass Pledge with a power of 150 and create a swamp on the target side of the field for 4 turns. This swamp quarters the speed of all Pokemon on that side of the field. This is an incredible amount of work and some incredibly impactful effects that I think most players have just never seen because the power of these moves used to be absolute ass. And these are almost impossible to use in singles. These are meant to be used in doubles or, hey, in triples, RIP. The distribution of these moves is very, very lackluster as well. I think it's just the starters, and I think it's the elemental monkeys. The elemental monkeys get it, and people hate the elemental monkeys, so that's probably why people, by association, also hate these moves. As for actually tiering these moves, the main issue is the very low distribution, since they're essentially locked to the starters. However, the base power is reasonable, and the combo effects are all very, very powerful and impactful. You sometimes saw this, occasionally, in Gen 8 VGC, where the starters were good, so sometimes they'd be taking some pledges. We'll put them in high niche. Very, very cool effects. I wish we saw more moves like this. Just like with how we demonstrated Round, we're gonna go ahead and demonstrate an incredible pledge combo. Alright guys, after me. Fire Pledge! But I'm not done yet! Now, taste the rainbow! Whoa, the combo! Incredible doubled secondary effects, but don't use Charge Beam. Look at that, only possible with teamwork. We don't have a swamp or burning field emote, so we can only do this one combo. Flame Burst. I thought this was Searing Shot, but no, that's a different move. Flame Burst is one of the moves you can use in the Pokemon franchise starting in Gen 5. It's a 70 base power special fire move. I believe it does actually have a unique effect of percentage-based splash damage. Flame Burst deals damage to the target, then inflicts damage to up to 2 Pokemon adjacent to that target, equal to 1/16 of their respective maximum HP. This is so strange. It is a single target spread move. Like how rockets in FPSs have splash damage. If you're trying to damage multiple enemies, you would much rather just use a real spread move. Very funny, with the 30% spread damage penalty, Heat Wave has the same power, except instead of 1/16th health, Heat Wave just hits the opponent. You're almost certainly going to do more than 1/16th. Lots of interesting interactions unique to the spread damage because no other move works like this, but it bypasses abilities. It's not really damage, but because it is an effect, Magic Guard actually stops it. Kind of a shame that so many unique mechanics are locked to this definite filler move that nobody really uses. Maybe you'd consider this if the splash damage hit 2 targets, right? RIP triples. But hey, at worst, it's a 70 base power fire move. That's not that bad. Good filler. Flame Charge. I think you can directly blame this move for Embor being ass, because they clearly intended for you to boost Embor's horrendous speed with Flame Charge. Flame Charge is a 50 base power fire move that has the effect of then increasing your speed by 1 stage. In general, using your entire turn for a single stat boost is not really worth it, and you would never use a 50 base power move to damage your opponent with. But when you staple those together with a fire typing, which is a good offensive type, and decent distribution from the TM, yeah, you sometimes see this. I think it's worth a niche placement. For some Pokemon, this counts as fire type coverage. Foul play! What are you looking at me for? I didn't do anything. Now, really, Crocodile wouldn't use this move, but lots of Pokemon do. I really like Foul Play. Really cool move with a really cool design. Foul Play is a 95 base power physical dark move with 100 accuracy. So right away, you hear those numbers and you think, whoa, what's the catch? And the catch/upside is that these incredible numbers do not go with your attack stat. They go with your opponent's attack stat. This move uses your opponent's attack stat against them, and this does count as a dark attack coming from you. So that means that dark types that have very bad attack, like Mandibuzz and Umbreon, suddenly get to absolutely destroy you if you have good attack. This is a really cool and in-flavor dark type way for defensive dark type Pokemon to cheat and get a really strong attack in the right circumstances. And even if your opponent doesn't have the greatest attack stat, 95 base power is so high that they're going to be taking pretty meaty damage no matter what. This attack is actually really good. Special attackers usually run 0 attack IVs anyway to minimize confusion damage, but Foul Play is another reason to make sure to set that IV to 0 in your Nintendo PC. Because otherwise, some foul play might be afoot. I think I said at the beginning that these moves aren't really ranked within tiers, and they're not, but I guess I'll say it again because I know that some people skip the criteria. I mean, I guess we'll move Foul Play up. Again, I'm not really ranked these within tiers, but Foul Play is really good. Notably, Mandibuzz actually gets triple stab on Foul Play because it is a dark type. It is foul! And if you try to use it in-game, oh god, it's foul! Oh. Foul Play also a big combo with Swagger, part of the reason why Swagger got banned. Freeze Shock and Ice Burn. Moves that exist and that you could theoretically use, although nobody ever has. These are the signature moves of the Kyurem forms. Freeze Shock for Kyurem Black, Ice Burn for Kyurem White. These are 140 base power with a 30% chance of applying their secondary effect, so 30% paralysis for Freeze Shock, 30% burn for Ice Burn. However, they're 2-turn moves, so they suck. The issue with 2-turn moves is that you're making a sacrifice, right? An investment. You forfeit your first turn for a big second turn. Normally, when you make an investment, you should get more value out of your turns, right? You would expect more than 2 turns of damage, but it's the opposite. You get less. If you Ice Beam twice, that's 180 base damage, but if you Freeze Shock or Ice Burn, that's only 140 base damage. Why? If people are telling you to invest in Freeze Shock or Ice Burn, don't do it, okay? It's a ploy. I think the only 2-turn move that has ever been worth it, even considering cheesing it with a power herb, is Geomancy, and even then, Geomancy doesn't give you more than 2 turns, it gives you exactly 2 turns. Why are they so stingy with these? Freeze Shock and Ice Burn, both signature moves of the Kyurem forms. Do either Kyurem form use these moves? Not directly. You basically use them as a high base power base for your Z move, kind of like how you would use Giga Impact or Hyper Beam. I don't really know if that counts as using these moves, and anyway, RIP Z moves. Would other Pokemon use these moves if they had access to them? Probably not, charge moves suck. It's my damage and I want it now! These should be like 200 base power with guaranteed status, then I would use them. Frost Breath and Storm Throw. These are both really cool, and not just because Frost Breath is an ice move. These are the very first auto-crit moves. These aren't exactly type-shifted, which is a little strange. Frost Breath is 40 base power special, 90 accuracy, but Storm Throw is 40 base power physical, 100 accuracy. 40 base power is obviously trash, but the selling point of these moves is that they always critical. So effectively, it's 80 base power. Now, crits were immediately nerfed in Gen 6 to only deal 1.5 damage instead of double, but mercifully, Game Freak also adjusted the base power of these moves to both be 60. So that actually ended up buffing them. They used to deal 80 base power, but now they effectively deal 90. Now, why would you want a move that automatically crits? There are some special synergies that go with that. You get extra multipliers from the crit ability Sniper. You can activate things that require crits, like Anger Point. You could theoretically guaranteed crit your own partner in order to activate Anger Point. That's definitely a gimmick. The big upside of always critting is ignoring stat buffs, whether positive on your opponent or negative on you. So your opponent can growl you 6 times and defense curl 6 times themselves. I have no idea what kind of battle this is, but Frost Breath and Storm Throw then do not care about any of that. They will always deal their full damage. The downside of auto critting is that these moves are just ass against shell armor or battle armor Pokemon that can't be crit. And more relevant is, because they always crit, they can't randomly crit. Most moves we talk about actually have a higher expected base power than we actually say, because 8% of the time they crit. And these moves can never randomly get that boost. I think both these moves are really neat. They're not really widely distributed or useful enough to be considered staple moves, I don't think, but I would definitely say they have a niche. I think it's cool that we have these auto-crit mechanics. And just like Fiery Dance has since been usurped by Torch Song from Fuecoco, Frost Breath and Storm Throw have since been usurped in the broken auto-crit meta by Meowscarada's Flower Trick. Although, Flower Trick's a grass type move, so is it really better? Oh yeah, and Flame Charge gets absolutely dumpstered by Aqua Step from Quaquaval. Guys, Gen 9 starters someday, and I'll tell you right now, their signature moves are insane. I imagine by the time I make Gen 9 starters, a couple days before the heat death of the universe, they'll probably have nerfed the Gen 9 signature moves. They're all insane. The 60 base power of these moves also combos really well with Technician, but no Technician users get either of these moves. When I mentioned earlier that these moves could theoretically combo with crit multipliers from Sniper, I guess that was just wishful thinking, because apparently snipers are extinct. I don't think anybody will notice. Terrible class. Guard Split and Power Split. These both have the same effect, but they affect different stats. Remember Pain Split, how it averages your HP with the opponent? Well, Guard Split averages your defense and special defense with the opponent. Power Split averages your attack and special attack with the opponent. Theoretically, if you have a lot of defense, you could use this to buff the defense of your ally. If you have very low defense, you can use this to steal defense from the enemy. Likewise with Power Split. If you have a lot of attack, you could buff up your ally. If you don't have any attack, you can use it to steal attack from the enemy.
Eventually, you could have an extremely viable strategy, and it works best in Imagination Land.
These are moves that you would sometimes use for a laugh with Shuckle.
Hold it!
Hey, post-production imported cheese here. Just wanted to apologize for my inappropriate phrasing. I have no idea why I said for a laugh with Shuckle, it clearly should have been a chuckle with Shuckle. I apologize to anyone without Shuckle's defenses who may have been wounded by my inept phrasing. I hope you can forgive me. If I'm mentioning Shuckle when trying to talk about a move's viability, you know we're in trouble. These are basically never worth using. Why are you relying on how you match up against your enemy in order to then manipulate your stats? No. These moves also have terrible distribution. Basically, you are far better off actually buffing yourself or actually debuffing the enemy. If you want the only serious use that people are able to think of, you could guard split Chansey with Shuckle, and then it's going to be very difficult to kill Chansey. I hope your opponent doesn't have Taunt, because I don't know what Shuckle and Chansey are going to do. Head Charge. Very straightforward move, and a bit disappointing in terms of how boring this is. This is the signature move of Bouffalant. It's 120 base power, physical normal move, 100 accuracy. It's literally double edge, except with double edge, you take 1/3 damage recoil, and with head charge, you only take 1/4. That's it. I really wish this had some sort of unique effect, but yeah, it's just better double edge. Does Bouffalant use this? Yeah. Would other Pokemon use this if they could? Yes. Every double-edged Pokemon would rather run Head Charge, but they don't have a luscious afro to cushion the recoil, so they can't. Head Charge is also a contender for the most nerfed localization name in the series. Head Charge is just a really bland name. Nothing really differentiates it from Head Smash, which is a rock move. This also competes in the namespace with Headlong Rush, which is a ground move. And you would never be able to guess the typing of any of these moves based on their name alone. But in Japanese, this was known as Afro Breaker, Afro Break. They definitely should have kept that. I guarantee you more people would run Bouffalant just to use a move called Afro Break. Heal Pulse. This is Recover Other. It's a 50% HP restore to your target. I'm assuming your partner, because I'm not really sure why you would heal your opponent. Infamously part of the Fun Bro setup in order to ensure that your opponent has maximum fun forever. As for actual application in a battle you intend to win instead of forcing your opponent to quit, compares unfavorably to Life Dew. Life Dew heals both you and your ally, whereas Heal Pulse only heals your target. But Heal Pulse heals for more. Pollen Puff, like Life Dew, another spread healing move that outclasses Heal Pulse. This is a Pulse move, which means that Mega Launcher Pokemon apparently make extra good medics, and they can heal more. I think that Heal Pulse's best days are behind it. There's just better options you could use, but there's probably still some niches. Like maybe you could Heal Pulse your Belly Drum Snorlax. Theoretically, you could use Mega Medic, Mega Launcher, Clauncher, but probably not. You might also say that it doesn't really make any sense for Claudsir to be healing its ally since it's clearly an offensive Pokemon, but hey, this guy from Concord is apparently a healer? What? And they're even both blue, so I guess they're the same character. Is that an unfair comparison to Claudsir? Yeah. I'm sorry, Claudsir, you didn't deserve that. You might notice now there's 2 niche tiers, and the reason why I did that is because otherwise it would look like this. And now we're blocking the list, so that's why when we run out of space, we'll just make another tier. Be sure to heart stamp that like button because you'll never see this move otherwise. Heart Stamp should be really glad that it is a signature move of the Swoobat line, because otherwise, this is so bad it might actually be in useless despite being a damaging move. It is 60 base power, physical, with a flinch chance on a special attacking Pokemon. Why? Does Swoobat use this move? No. Apparently Jinx, Love Disc, and Miltank get it, along with Event Pikachu. I think that does still qualify as signature. It's like a very narrow themed move. None of them would use this. Event Jirachi apparently gets it, although you would definitely rather just use Iron Head, so no. Would other Pokemon use this move? I guess if you had a fast, physically attacking, psychic-type technician, yeah, they might use Heart Stamp. Maybe. Heat Crash and Heavy Slam. Coincidentally, and very conveniently, they happen to be next to each other in alphabetical order. They're also very similar mechanically, they're just type shifted. Heat Crash used to be the signature move of the Embor line, but then it became a TM, so now it's much more widely distributed. Both of them calculate their damage based on your weight versus the opponent. The heavier you are comparatively, the more damage you deal. Here's the exact calculation for how much base power you get. Floor of 40 and a ceiling of 120. 100 accuracy physical for both of these. Heat Crash is theoretically better because fire is a better attacking type than steel. However, one of the main things you want to actually use fire moves against are steel types, right? Because steel types are really good. However, steel types tend to be really heavy, which means that your Heat Crash isn't going to be doing as much damage as you'd like. That unfortunately makes Heat Crash kind of a filler move. You wouldn't really use this. Maybe Groudon would, because Groudon is just gigantic. But even then, that's like iffy. Heavy Slam, on the other hand, is actually really good for the reasons that Heat Crash is bad. Because the steel types that use Heavy Slam are really heavy, so a lot of the time you get a 120 base power stab move with perfect accuracy. Even though steel is not an amazing attacking type, those numbers are pretty good. So Heavy Slam, I think, does actually count as a staple move. Hex, the only ghost move from Gen 5. And it's actually a really good one, but not in Gen 5, ironically, because in Gen 5 it was only 50 base power. In Gen 6 it was buffed to 65 base power, which is actually not a 15 power buff. It's actually a 30 power buff, because what are the stats of Hex? Hex is now 65 base power, 100 accuracy special ghost move. With the effect, if your opponent is statused, it doubles to 130 power. Wow! 130 power is a lot. This is a really good incentive to status your opponent. Often it's already worth statusing your opponent, but if you're statusing them, you're not attacking them, right? And this sort of makes it as if you also attacked them on the status, because you just do massive damage. Combos really well with moves like Toxic Spikes, where now you don't even have to spend a turn to status them. And this procs off of any status, so you don't necessarily have to poison them. You could burn them with Will-O-Wisp, which a lot of ghosts get. Maybe they got Thunder Waved by someone. If your opponent is statused, they are probably about to die if you hex them. Really strong. And the fail case of Hex, just using it against opponent that is not statused, it's not a disaster. It's not good, you don't want to do it, but you're not going to be cursing your luck if you have to use a 65 base power move. Hex, really good. I think we actually are going to put it in staples. Actually competitive with Shadow Ball. You would consider running Hex if your team has a lot of ways to spread status. What if we had Hex, except it just sucked? Well, here's Venoshock. It's Hex, except it's a way worse attacking type. It's Poison, arguably the worst attacking type in the game. And it only works off of Poison. It's like Iron Fist and Tough Claws. Iron Fist is more narrow, and yet worse than Tough Claws. Venoshock is more narrow, and yet worse than Hex. Why? At worst, it's a 65 base power, 100 accuracy, special poison move. That, I think, saves it from useless. And if you do manage to Venoshock a poisoned opponent, I mean, that's 130 base power. Like, that's not bad, but this should have some sort of special upside. If your opponent is set up to get Venoshocked, they should be in horrible shape. They should add some sort of extra debilitating effect to this. Maybe drop all your opponent's stats as well? Or maybe, like, increment the toxic counter. Make them take more damage from poison. Both of those things I think would be in flavor with Venoshock, and the extra restriction you have to go through, that it only works against poisoned opponents. As it stands now, Hex is just way, way better. Apparently Venom Drench already does the stat drop thing. Tells you how much I care about Venoshock and Venom Drench. Fun fact, in Legends Arceus, Venoshock gets its double damage off of any status effect. Just like how in Legends Arceus, X-Scissor actually does have the high crit that everybody imagines that it does. Hoenn Leech! I think this is just physical Giga Drain with slightly different numbers. Hoenn Leech, physical grass, 75 base power, 100 accuracy, sucks 50% of the health from the opponent. And Giga Drain was buffed, so it actually is just Giga Drain, except physical. Not quite a signature move, used to be exclusive to the Sawsbuck line until Go-Goat stole their thunder, just like Go-Goat stole the spotlight from every Pokemon. The distribution of this move is terrible. Tapu Bulu and Ogerpon both unironically use this move, and Go-Goat is rockin' super stab on Hoenn Leech, right? Have you seen how horny Go-Goat is? We're putting this in Staples. Hurricane! Very easy move to rank, very straightforward. 120 base power, special flying move. 70% accuracy, which is horrible, but it's 100% in rain, and a 30% chance to then inflict confusion. Usually you only use this on rain teams, but rain teams are pretty serious, and they love Hurricane. Lots of Pokemon use Hurricane, big damage, more RNG than I would like, but it's still really good. Easy staple, even though it did get its power nerfed from 120 down to 110. Still really good. Icicle Crash, the first real physical ice move in the game. It's 85 base power, 90 accuracy with a flinch chance. It's only 10 base power more than Ice Punch, yet usually you would rather run this than Ice Punch. This is very unexciting, but yeah, if you're a physical ice type, you're probably gonna use Icicle Crash. Icicle Crash is a very straightforward staple move. Gotta be sure to mix in that 10% miss chance on your side and a 30% flinch chance on the other side, just to make sure that 40% of the time, somebody is really pissed. It doesn't exactly work out to 40%, does it? Don't check that. Nowadays, you'd probably rather use Ice Spinner. Incinerate! This move is absolutely crazy. 150 base power, and it perma-burns your opponent's Pokemon. They actually cannot be healed no matter what, even if they go to the Pokemon Center. This was the signature move of Houndoom, a Pokemon that was able to inflict pain that never goes away. And it was one of the worst decisions they ever made to increase the distribution. You have to actually just gen a new Pokemon if you ever get hit by Incinerate. It's brutal. Well, one day we can hope that they'll nerf this... What? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what I was talking about. Incinerate apparently has a 30 base power and destroys your opponent's berry. This is probably the worst named move in the entire franchise. What do you expect when you hear Incinerate? Not one of the worst attacking fire moves in the entire franchise. Horrible. They actually buffed it to 60 base power pretty quickly in Gen 6. I mean, we'll put it in filler, but man, this is bad. Technically, destroying your opponent's berry is upside, but that really ends up just being a far worse version of Bug Bite and Pluck, which steal the effect for yourself. We can't even say this is a bad translation, because the Japanese version of this move, Yakitsukus, it just means like burn away or burn completely. Inferno! 100 base power, special fire move, always burns. 50% accuracy. This is fire type Zap Cannon / Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch does see non-meme use on no-guard Pokemon, but there are no no-guard Inferno users. It is not worth locking on to then Inferno, if anyone can even do that. 100 base power is a lot. Is this filler or niche? It's fun. If you compare this to Will-O-Wisp, you lose 35% accuracy, but you get 100 base power, which is really strong. Would you make that sacrifice? Probably not, but in that light, maybe Inferno looks a little better. Still not that good, though. Leaf Tornado, this is easy. Why would you ever use this move outside of your in-game playthrough? You wouldn't. 65 base power, 90 accuracy grass move, with actually a pretty significant 50% chance to lower the target's accuracy. So a chance-based proc to then give your opponent a chance to fail their move. Wow. Japanese name Grass Mixer, about as viable as Mixer the streaming service, remember that? Magic Room and Wonder Room. Ooh. Magic Room is a field effect that for 5 turns suppresses all item effects symmetrically on both sides. And Wonder Room is another field effect that inverts all defense and special defense, also symmetrically. Why would you ever do any of this? You wouldn't. It's cool that these moves exist. Magic Room in particular, I think, is just really bad because suppressing all items is just worthless. If it only suppressed enemies, like a super embargo, wow, that would be great, but it cancels your own items too. Why would you ever spend a turn and a move slot to do this? You wouldn't. Wonder Room, maybe, potentially, in some universe, caused some sort of blowout in some sort of battle. Maybe you only have special attacks against an opponent that has great special defense, but bad defense, and then you Wonder Room, and then whoa, suddenly you can strike them where they're weak? Would you really spend a turn and a move slot to do this? Most certainly not in singles, and most certainly not in doubles, and most certainly not in triples. Magic Room and Wonder Room. How about an Escape Room? I don't want to be in either of these. Horrible! Especially not Wonder Room, because there is a far better way for psychic types to cheat special attack and defense interactions. Namely with one of my favorite moves in the franchise, Psyshock. This move is so cool, I love it. Psyshock is an 80 base power, 100% accurate psychic move, and it's special. It calculates using your special attack against the opponent's physical defense. So cool! The reason why mixed attacking in general is not very viable is because most Pokemon simply don't have the stat total to be competent at both. You also can't really invest EVs and natures in both. And Psyshock gives you a way to mixed attack while only investing in your special attack. However, it's not free, right? This does have a drawback. Compared to Psychic, you're losing 10 base power and you also don't have the chance for a secondary effect. There also might be times when you actually want to use your special attack for your Psychic move, but you can't because you chose Psyshock. Very interesting move, asks very interesting questions of the trainer. I love this. It's also perfectly in flavor. Psychic is the type that is very strongly associated with the special attack stat, and they're also associated with weird mind and reality bending effects, right? We just talked about 2 of those. Magic Room, Wonder Room, Trick Room. These are all psychic type effects. So of course, Psychic would be the type that gets a special zany way to interact with special attack. Psyshock, easy staple move. I love this move. And so does Game Freak because they cloned it and gave it to Mewtwo, which I guess is in flavor with Mewtwo. Psystrike is literally just Psyshock, but 100 base power instead of 80. This is just better. Does Mewtwo use Psystrike? Yeah. Would other Pokemon use Psystrike? Yeah, literally every Pokemon that runs Psyshock would rather run Psystrike, but they can't because they're not Mewtwo. Game Freak wasn't quite done at Mewtwo. They kept going. Mew 3 confirmed because they cloned Psyshock again, sort of, with Secret Sword. Some things changed in the cloning process. It's now a fighting type move, so I guess synergy with Mega Mewtwo X, even though it doesn't get this move. This is Keldio's signature move. It's a fighting type variant of Psyshock, so it strikes the opponent's defense using your special attack, but I don't think it has any of the cool flavor from Psyshock, so I personally don't like it as much, but yeah, it's good. It's also 85 base power instead of 80 for some reason. Does Keldeo use this move? Yeah, I think so. It's a nice option. Would other Pokemon use this move if they could? Yeah, I think special attackers would appreciate this for fighting coverage, if they could. I'd probably rather use this in like Boris gear. Secret Sword is also Binding Blade tier effective against Chansey. Chansey hates this move. How does this move even work, flavor-wise? I guess it's a secret. Maybe it's a Vorpal Blade, whatever that means. Night Daze, yet another signature move. Night Daze is the signature move of the Zoroark line. Night Daze's stats here, 85 base power, 95 accuracy special, 40% chance to lower the target's accuracy by 1 stage. In Pokemon Sword and Shield, due to a glitch when Night Daze plays its animation and it damages its target, and the target does not faint, the HP bar does not visibly change until the end of the turn or something else changes its HP. This is clearly propaganda by people who just hate modern Pokemon and are looking for excuses to talk down about it. It's not a glitch, it's a natural extension of Zoroark's illusion ability. It also applies to the opponent's HP. Normally, signature moves are just better than the widely distributed variants. We literally just saw that, where Psystrike was a strict upgrade to Psyshock, but Night Daze I think is actually worse than Dark Pulse in most cases. With Night Daze you get an extra 5 power, but you lose 5 accuracy, and the 40% chance to drop opponent accuracy, to then have another chance to have them miss a move, usually not as good as the 20% flinch chance of Dark Pulse to deny their turn immediately. The Dark Pulse flinch does have the caveat that you have to be faster than your opponent, but Zoroark's really fast, so no problem. Does Zoroark use Night Daze? No. Would other Pokemon use Night Daze if they could? No, they would most likely still rather use Dark Pulse. Quick Guard! This is a very specific field-wide defense effect. +3 priority, and it negates all incoming priority moves from the opponent that turn. This is way, way, way worse than Psychic Terrain, which is a persistent effect that does not require your turn if you set it up with Psychic Surge, and does not require prediction. I guess the reason to use Quick Guard instead of just Psychic Terrain is Psychic Terrain also stops your priority, but Quick Guard doesn't. It ties Fake Out in priority, so if you want to actually stop Fake Out, you have to be faster than the Fake Out Pokemon. It is apparently used sometime in VGC. Sure. Sounds like a niche move to me. Obviously useless in singles, but if you can negate 2 moves in doubles, you might do that. Hey, what if you negated 3 moves in a triple battle, RIP? And we're gonna quickly transition to the other guard. They're in like a phalanx. I guess the phalanx is broken because there's no way wide guard goes here. Wow, so wide guard, another field-wide defense move. This one stops opponent spread moves. All of them. They just fizzle when you wide guard. That's really good! You can easily get a turn advantage from this, wide guarding to stop your opponent's rock slides and heat waves. Super, super useful. Considering how good this move is in doubles, imagine if you could actually stop 3 moves with it, RIP triples. This move even has +3 priority. You would think that on an effect this powerful, you'd at least have to be fast to use it, but nope, you get +3 priority. Great. Do note that because this is a protect effect, you can't spam it. It does gain an increasing chance to fail each time, but they only added this after Gen 5, so in Gen 5, with triples, hey, you can just spam wide guard. What are they gonna do? They're gonna attack you with a single target move, because it does nothing against those. Anybody ever played the underrated Just Dance franchise? I think they're still making those for the Wii? Or they were, years after the Wii supposedly died. People love to dance, but this one's really easy. Quiver Dance is one of the best boosting moves in the game. There's really only 1 or 2 that can compete, and we're gonna talk about another one soon. You like Dragon Dance? Dragon Dance was plus attack and plus speed. Quiver Dance, it's plus special attack and plus speed. And plus special defense! It increases your res! What are they gonna do? The res increasing part is definitely the least important part, but it's far from useless. It allows you to set up pretty reliably against any special attacker. This is a really, really insane move. The main issue with it is that most of the Pokemon who get Quiver Dance, because this is a bug-type move, strongly associated with butterflies and moths, most of its users suck. Because most of those Pokemon are absolute garbage. However, Quiver Dance is so good, you would still consider putting Venomoth on your team. Of course, the star user of Quiver Dance is the Olgamoth himself. This basically was added to be your payoff for training Larvesta into Olgamoth. You get to then invest one turn to absolutely destroy the rest of the game. Extremely powerful. Please play res graphic.
Your magic shall not save you.
What are those special attackers gonna do? I'm not gonna say this is a bad translation, but it's definitely a weird one. I'm not sure why it went from Tolnomai, butterfly dance, to quiver. Anybody know why? Butterflies, strongly associated with quivering in English. I have no idea. I really don't know what quiver dance means. Do I have a quiver? Am I quivering? Bulbapedia doesn't know either. In Spanish, apparently it's called flutter dance. That's much better. Butterflies flutter. They should have called it flutter dance. Razor Shell. It's a filler move, but it's a really good one. The numbers on Razor Shell are pretty good here. 75 base power, physical water move, 95 accuracy, couldn't be 100 because then it'd be too good. Razor Shell inflicts damage and has a 50% chance of lowering the target's defense by 1 stage. That's pretty good. And if used by a Pokemon with sharpness, its power increases by 50%. Whoa! How many of these Pokemon are sharp? It's basically just Hisuian Samurott. Again proving that Hisuian Samurott is just better. For the time you actually get this in the story of Gen 5, it's really good. 75 base power for that point in the game is huge. It's like Gym 2. Most physical water types would rather use either Waterfall or Liquidation, but Razor Shell isn't bad. This is a very good filler move. Don't consider this a diss on it. Cloyster apparently also uses this sometimes as a physical water option, because it doesn't get the better water moves. Fine, we'll put it in niche for Cloyster use. Reflect type. Changes your type to mirror your opponent's. Why would you ever do that? You wouldn't. Reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. 1, it takes up a move slot. You don't know what type your opponent is until you're facing them. Then once you change into their type, what moves are you gonna use? Like, you're probably not going to have stab because you didn't know what type you're gonna change into. Horrible. Some people in the chat are saying that apparently Starmie used this to no longer be vulnerable to Pursuit, a move that no longer exists for some reason. Sure. We'll put it in niche, but not because of that. It should actually go in meta-defining because this is part of the biggest combo in Pokemon. You match your opponent's type, and then it's all over, because that's the only condition for Synchronoise, baby! Now no one's safe! Synchronoise! It's so powerful that the icon doesn't even appear correctly. I don't know what's going on. We'll be nice. We'll explain the Synchronoise meta to the 1 or 2 viewers that haven't heard about this incredible move. Synchronoise! Special Psychic move. Whoa, 120 power, that's so good! 100 accuracy, it never misses! Synchronoise damages all adjacent Pokemon that share at least one type with the user. But pay attention to that, at least one type, doesn't have to be both. If the user has multiple types, any Pokemon that has any of those types will be damaged. Whoa! Now, this used to be 70 base power, and just in a completely baffling move, they almost doubled it to 120 if it wasn't strong enough. Synchronoise can be used as part of a contest spectacular combination. You heard it here first, guys. Spectacular combination. With the user getting an extra 3 appeal points if Reflect type was used on the prior turn. Official combo! Just some trivia. Synchronoise will never be effective if the user has no type, so if a Purifier type has used Burn Up. And in Gen 9, they finally came to their senses, and to save the meta, they removed Synchronoise. It was just too much of a terror. Oh, look at that. Hypno loves this move! So with Synchronoise, you could potentially hit Psychic types, which, you know, already resist it. I guess you could hit normal types. You could hit a water type. Oh, and with Eevee, that means all of the Eeveelutions get it! It's in their genes! That means you can get Stab Synchronoise with Espeon, and you can get Anti-Stab Synchronoise with Umbreon, a Synchronoise that only affects other Dark types with a Psychic move. You know, guys, I'm starting to think that maybe Synchronoise actually isn't that good. Real talk, this is probably one of the worst moves introduced in Generation 5. Certainly one of the most memeable, just because the design is utterly baffling. Only hits Pokemon you share a type with, but it's a Psychic move, and Psychic resists Psychic. In the vast majority of matchups, this does literally nothing, and in most of the matchups where it does do something, it does half of what you would expect it to. This is so bad. Its main usage is, it's funny to talk about how bad it is. Because I can't move any of the moves. I can't move Synchronoise. It's stuck. It's too strong. This is not a bit. I don't know what's going on. I need to be the same type as Synchronoise to be able to move it. Okay, save. Unsynced. Oh, we're saved, okay. Unsynced. Yeah, Synchronoise is arguably the worst move introduced this generation. It's so bad. Bro, it broke again! The Synchronoise! What is going on? Due to the website maintenance, you cannot save new tier lists. You can still export lists. Please check back in about an hour. Synced! You guys ever get that sinking feeling when you see bad news? I thought Synchronoise had bad distribution. It hit the entire site. Let's see, can we put Synchronoise where it actually belongs? Bro. The Synchronoise! Okay, I was able to refresh, which then kept Synchronoise there. Can I move Reflect type? These guys, Reflect type also not meta-defining. Okay, I think we're back to business as usual. Ooh! That's the most damage anyone has ever taken from Synchronoise. Click on Synchronoise and see how it is. Is it a problem with Synchronoise? It's literally a problem with Synchronoise! Only Synchronoise destroys the tier list. The web admins at Tiermaker, huge Synchronoise fans. Get out of here, and I think I have to refresh again. Yo, I'm a Dark type. If any move shouldn't be affecting me on the tier list, it's Synchronoise, infamous for not affecting Dark types. You know what that means. It must be because I'm actually a good guy.
I will bring honor to my father and my kingdom.
Hopefully we can talk about the other moves as long as we don't touch Synchronoise. Relic Song. You already know this is a signature move, so may as well add another signature tier. Relic Song is the signature move of Meloetta, so we'll put it there. Not a very impressive move when you look at the numbers. Normal, special, 75 power, 100 accuracy, with a 10% chance to lull the opponent to sleep. Not very exciting. The main reason why you would use Relic Song is this here. If successfully used by Meloetta, affecting at least one Pokemon, it will also cause Meloetta to change between its Aria and Pirouette forms, changing its type, base stats, and EV yield. This is essentially a move that you begrudgingly use. It's a tax to be able to get into your Pirouette form, which is in general much better. Does Meloetta use this move? Yes, although it wishes it didn't have to. Would other Pokemon use this move? No, they never would, because they're not Meloetta, and they can't switch into a pirouette form. Retaliate! This is a 70 base power physical normal move, 100 accuracy, and the special effect is that if you use it immediately after an ally faints, so an ally gets knocked out, you get sent out and you retaliate, the power doubles to 140, which is quite good. Probably far too specific. The vast majority of the time, this is just a 70 base power physical normal move, but in Gen 6, it has a really cool animation. So Retaliate will always get credit for that. You get the samurai vengeance aesthetic. And of course, in the modern games, it's just like hit smacks. It sucks. Oh yeah, Jeremy Rossi just said you could think of Retaliate as the blueprint for what would eventually become Last Respects. I am very glad that Retaliate does not work like Last Respects. Remember guys, revenge is bad, and it hurts the people around you. Who actually uses Retaliate? Banded Slacking, that's pretty much it? Yeah, you pretty much never see this move, and it does make sense. Retaliate is a 30-minute cooldown. You can't just use that willy-nilly. You save Retaliate for important quest mobs. Sacred Sword. Which one? The Master Sword? The Forest Sword? The Durandal? The Binding Blade? Ragnell? Alondite? The Falchion? Did I not say Excalibur? How did I not say Excalibur? Excalibur? The Masamune? Frostmourne? Tearfing? The Monado? Balmung? That's probably enough, right? The Pokemon Sacred Sword, we're talking about the move, started off as a signature for the Swords of Justice, but it's since been expanded so some other slashing Pokemon get it. Notably, Gallade gets the combo of both Sacred Sword and Sharpness, which is pretty vicious. The numbers on Sacred Sword are really good. 90 base power, 100 accuracy physical fighting move with the very minor upside, but upside nonetheless, of bypassing enemy stat boosts. So it's like Chip Away, except it actually kills things because it's a good type and it has more power. Very solid staple move. I think almost every Pokemon that learns Sacred Sword actually uses it. It's so good, but not game-breaking good. Speaking of game-breaking good, I hope that whoever designed the move Scald is in hot water. I hate this move. This is probably my least favorite move in the entire franchise. This move is terrible. I mean, let's be clear, this move is really good, but also this move is terrible. This move has been ruining games since 2010. 14 years of my life ruined by the Pokemon move Scald. I'm gonna tell you the stats of Scald as if you don't already know. 80 base power, special water move. That's fine, that's actually worse than Surf. 30% burn chance. Why? Why? On the surface, it doesn't seem that good, right? I mean, Discharge is an 80% base power electric move, 30% paralysis chance. Lava Plume, more direct comparison, 80 base power special fire move, 30% burn chance. Nobody really cares about Discharge. Nobody really cares about Lava Plume. Why is Scald so awful? Couple issues. Let's talk about the counterplay to getting paralyzed in general. How do you avoid getting paralyzed? Paralysis is very strongly linked to the electric type, right? If you don't want to get paralyzed, you can either use electric types yourself, who cannot be paralyzed, or ground types. Ground types, they technically can be paralyzed, but they dodge all electric moves, including Discharge. How do you avoid burn? Fire types can't be burned. So fire types can freely switch into Lava Plume and not really risk anything, not to mention the fact that pretty much no Pokemon actually get Lava Plume. How do you dodge a burn from Scald? Well, if you don't want Scald to burn you, you should just switch into your fire Oh. Scald is a water type move. So it naturally counters the counterplay. Did water types need this move? Water was already one of the best types in the game. and yet they got Scald. I think one of the worst parts about Scald, design-wise, is that there's basically no opportunity cost to using this. You could use Surf, which has 90 base power, and Spread for where that matters, or you could sacrifice a measly 10 base power for a 30% chance to obliterate any counter that switches into you. The only good news about Scald is that people pay you $10 when you talk about it.
We need more gold.
Thank you to Perilous Paradigm for the $10 microtransaction. Apparently we're getting out of Edgewater, New Jersey with this move, Hot Sauna Action 30% burn. I'm not sure what that means, but as long as you agree that Scald sucks. What else did I want to say about Scald? There's a lot. Remember that back in the day, we didn't get simultaneous worldwide releases. We were drip-fed moves and translations from the Japanese version. When people described Scald, we could not believe it. This move was so obviously broken, we thought it was a mistake. Let this be a lesson. You can't trust everything you read on the internet. I guarantee you, okay, if you speak Japanese, that is a good joke, okay? Netto means scald, or hot water. Scald is also just the worst type of RNG. 30% burn chance is low enough that oftentimes it is the correct play to switch your Pokemon in and risk the burn. However, 30% chance is also high enough that 2 Scalds on average is 51% burn chance. If you get scalded twice and don't get burned, you're actually lucky. The burn chance is low enough that it still feels awful when you get burned, and you're gonna get burned a lot. You know what they say? When you play with water, you get burned. Oh, that's not what they say? Then why is this a water type move that can burn you? Scald just feels like absolute ass to both play with and against. You switch into Scald, you get burned, you feel terrible. You throw out a Scald, you burn the opponent. Are you proud of yourself? Like, is this the game you want to play? Where you're just rolling the dice, hoping that your ridiculously over-tuned move, 30% chance wins you the game? Horrible! $10 macrotransaction from Blue Crimson 217, bringing up another point, which is that the burn status condition is also incredibly good. They've since nerfed it. Burn used to actually deal huge damage to you, 12% a turn, the same as normal poison, in addition to the attack cut. Pretty much the only counter to Scald is Water Absorb. $2 mic transaction from It's a Zeus. I mean, it's Scalding hot water. Oh, we'll get to that. Big issue with Scald. It just does way too much in one move slot. It's both a very solid offensive stab move with huge secondary chance upside that also happens to be basically uncounterable because it being a water move naturally counters burn counterplay. How would you fix Scald? Well, my suggestion would be to just delete it from the game, which is apparently what Game Freak did for a short while. And then they tried to sell it back to you because, hey, they know this move's really good. Obvious fixes to Scald: reduce the burn chance. If this was a 10 or 15% burn chance, that would make a lot more sense. It would also be much more in line with literal fire moves that can burn you. You could also reduce the base power of it. It doesn't have to be non-damaging, but I think 40 or even 50 would be pretty reasonable. At that point, you would have to choose between either having your water stab move or having this water stab move that's a little bit weaker but has crazy upside. A zanier fix would be make fire types either immune or even heal from it. Fire types love hot things, right? If you have fire types somehow able to ignore Scald, then you keep the counterplay against burn, right, using your fire type. And that also means that Scald now actually asks really interesting team building questions. Your water type could run this super good stab move that can potentially burn, but if you do that, you are now making yourself vulnerable to a type that you theoretically should counter. So then maybe you run Scald and a water stab move? I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe I just run the water stab move. Now let me be clear. The main issue with Scald are the numbers. The numbers are just too high. However, this is something that's been bothering me, And I suspect it may have been bothering some of you guys as well. Isn't this move kind of weird? Why does every water-type Pokemon suddenly have the ability to generate and spew boiling hot water? Isn't that, like, kind of odd? In a way that spewing cold water, Ice Beam, doesn't feel weird. I'm not crazy, right? You also sort of feel this? I suspect that you do. To that end, I'd like to present to you guys today a PowerPoint about Scald. By me. So first off, before we begin our presentation, just a little bit about myself. My name is Crocodile. I've been a games consultant since 2010. I used to be more on the field, actually doing, the fighting myself, but it turns out if you go around, killing people for money, some other people get mad, so I backed out of that business. And I was able to parlay my experience on the ground into more of a consultant role. So now I actually operate my own consultant company. It's called Sweep Baby Inc. I'm a huge advocate for more DIE in games. That's Damage, Intimidate, and Earthquake. I think that gamers nowadays are way too hesitant about just attacking and killing their opponents. So I'm always on the side of more DIE in games. I've been a consultant on some major releases. You may have heard of Concord, $400 million budget. And actually, I was the motion capture base for their flagship character, Lennox. You can see we both share some very reptilian features. I think they captured my likeness quite well.
All right!
I've also been consulted for the upcoming Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows. You can see here that I was actually in the Sengoku era, the Warring States period. That's me pictured with my old friend Masanori. We go way back. And I was, in fact, witness to a lot of Oda Nobunaga's antics. Ubisoft consulted with me concerning the historical veracity of Assassin's Creed Shadows. We came to a consensus, a concord you could say, and we created an experience that I think, in particular, Japanese audiences, they're gonna love it.
Village. Not while I have breath in my lungs and a blade in my hand.
I said kill him.
If you want to hire me to consult on any of your games, my emails are always open. Please consider hiring Sweep Baby Inc. for your next gaming project. And if you don't see the value of adding more DIE to your games, I would encourage you to just have a lemonade with your marketing team and just terrify them with the prospect of what'll happen if you don't get what you want. But enough about me. Let's talk more about Scald. Before we can talk about Scald itself, we need to talk about the concept of synergistic and antagonistic types. Now, this is something that we all understand. Some types get along really well, and some types don't. Question for the class, what types get along really well? First one I would imagine comes to mind for all of you. Rock and Ground, right? Rock and Ground pair together really well. To the point where in most fantasy genres, they're the same, right? Pokemon is the only franchise I know of that actually segregates rock and ground instead of just calling it Earth. But almost every rock type can use ground moves. Almost every ground type can use rock moves. Another highly synergistic pairing, Water and Ice. Going all the way back to Generation 1, Water and Ice types have always been shown together. There's very little distance between them when it comes to move pools. Now let's talk about antagonistic types. So I'd like you to list some antagonistic types you can think of. One antagonistic pair is Normal and Ghost. You have Normal, the mundane, the everyday, the corporeal, and then you have Ghost, the ephemeral, the otherworldly, the unknowable. These two aspects do not interact with each other, and that is reflected in the type chart, right? Normal and Ghost literally cannot touch each other. They don't belong to the same world. And you might ask, well, what about History and Zoroark? And my question to you is, earnestly, what about History and Zoroark? I have no idea why this Snow White Pokemon in an Arctic environment with a signature move that applies a freeze effect to you is a normal type. It should clearly be an ice type, so I don't actually think this is a real example. Another antagonistic pair, Fighting and Dark. These types also do not like each other at all. What is the Fighting type about? And this really started in Gen 5. The Fighting type is about the high road, right? It's about discipline. It's about fair fights, fighting your opponent head on, working for what you have. What is the Dark type about? It's about undercutting that. It's about cheating. It's about get rich quick, something I would know about. It's about doing whatever you can to gain an advantage. These types hate each other. And when you pair them together, either one of them is lost or there's a specific reason for it. So take a look at Scrafty. This is a dark fighting type, but it's basically just a dark type that kicks you. And what about another one, Pangoro? This is another fighting dark type, but it's really a fighting type that's been hanging out with some bad hombres, right? This has a lore reason to be a dark type. It's a Pancham that spent too much time around the wrong crowd and became a dark type itself. There's reasons for breaking the antagonism between these types. Now, I've sort of buried the lead here, right? Because when I asked you to think about antagonistic types, what's the first one you thought of? It's fire and water, right? Fire and water hate each other. Of all type pairings in the game, these do not cross ever. Inside you, there are two wolves. One is a water type, one is a fire type, apparently. Except they're not inside you because their fire and water do not mix. Anybody remember the plot of Gen 3? That was literally the story. Fire versus water. Fire and water type Pokemon hate each other. They do not interact. Their specific weathers directly nerf each other. And you might say, okay, well, what about Volcanion, right? That's a fire water type. Well, first of all, does Volcanion actually exist? I've never seen this thing. And secondly, this thing is so hideous, I would rather it didn't exist. I imagine most of you agree. Although this small by Lab Agent Ash looks really good. What water types learn fire moves? The only one I can think of is the Slowbro family, and it's really weird that it can. The only fire type I can think of that actually learns a water type move is Emboar from Gen 5. Funnily enough, the move that it learns is Scalds. Octillery also has Flamethrower, but that makes sense because the entire theming of Octillery is that it's a tank, right? So of course a tank gets a weapon like Flamethrower. In that sense, it does actually fit, because it's the theming of the Pokemon usurping the theming of the types. Let's actually talk about the theming of the types. What traits do we associate, not just with water types, but sort of with water magic in fantasy in general, and in our real life? What do we associate with water? Tranquility, calmness. Water types or water magic users, they can be carefree, right? We have the phrase, go with the flow, which literally has to do with water. And the big one, especially in fantasy magic, nurturing and healing. Water magic users are almost always depicted as able to use curative magic, right? It happens in Avatar, water benders can heal. Look at this bizarre open world game featuring some guy in like blue clothes. Maybe you guys played this game and remember the title. You get an ability called Mifa's Grace, a water elemental effect that revives you if you die. Golden Sun, Isaac will be appearing in Smash soon. Water Psi Energy users can heal. Water is very, very strongly associated with healing. We also see the healing theme of water carried over into Pokemon. Moves like Aqua Ring, horrible move by the way, but it's not a move that anybody would question. Of course, coating yourself in water would heal you. What about Life Dew? Life Dew AoE healing. It's a water move. Water absorb. Hydration. Dry skin. Water is very, very strongly associated with healing, even in Pokemon. Of course, water can also be used on offense, right? Often with these clerical characters, I'm a healer, but they also have to be able to attack. Sometimes they attack with water, but often, water magic users can also manipulate ice. It is not out of flavor at all for water users to be able to use ice. Why is that? Let's take a look at the traits associated with ice types. What do we think about when we think ice? Elegance, right? Elegance and beauty. Purity, a pure white snowscape, sort of a fresh start. And it's a bit on the nose here, but coldness and aloofness, right? You can give someone the cold shoulder. You can be an ice queen. There is a very strong tie between elegance and beauty and both water and ice, right? This character from Dota 2, literally called Crystal Maiden, right? There's the implication of purity there. You have this character from Conquest, Mitsuhide and Articuno, the ice-type user. Look how cool this guy is in every sense. Ubisoft consulted with me on this one, and I mean, Yasuke was there, he did his best, but in the end, he was just a guy with a sword. And what are you gonna do against Conquest Articuno? Actually pretty strong. And here we have the inspiration for Frostlass, which is the Yuki Onna, this sort of snow seductress. I want you to pay attention to these traits here: elegance, purity, coldness, aloofness. You'll notice a lot of these are sort of just extreme versions of the water type traits, right? Coldness and aloofness is calmness and being carefree taken to an extreme, right? You're too calm. You're too carefree, you don't care. There is this subconscious thematic link between water and ice, with ice as just a more extreme version of water. Water is ice, and ice is water. It's just dangerous water. Now let's take a look at fire types. What sort of traits and characteristics do we associate with fire in fantasy? Action and impulsiveness. The opposite of being calm and collected, right? Being rash, acting on passion. Rage, anger. And most importantly, destruction and death. What does fire do? It does one thing, it kills things. What does water do? It heals things. The contrast could not be more clear. World of Warcraft Warlocks, their destruction tree, focuses primarily on fire. Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's a reason why they cast the Fire Nation as the villains. Fire is about destruction. And they learn later that there's positive sides to it, but what we infer when we see a bunch of fire is danger. Water and fire could not be more opposed to each other thematically. What happens if fire and water meet? Well, they destroy each other, right? They collide, you get steam, and then nothing. They do not mix. It almost never happens in the natural world, whereas we see snow all the time. That's just water in a cold form. When do we see hot water? Well, when we force it to happen. When we hold the water hostage and then introduce fire. When fire and water do meet in nature, in a controlled environment, people get completely obsessed with it, to the point where it's like a miracle, and you have to put it in every single anime and JRPG ever. Water and ice, naturally connected. Fire and water, naturally disconnected. So what are our conclusions? Big takeaway. Ice is water. Water is ice. Especially in fantasy magic. Often, but not always, those who can manipulate water can also manipulate ice, and vice versa. However, hot water is not water. Hot water is water and fire. Where there's steam, there's fire. You cannot have a water adept by themselves able to manipulate hot water. It's just not something that we understand fantasy water magic to be capable of. And that is my main point, that Scald violates our conception of fantasy water magic. It's just not something that we ever see, not just in Pokemon, but in fantasy media, where water is featured as an elemental type. Thank you for listening. All of this is why I feel that when a water type whips out an ice beam and kills your Garchomp, that is sort of what you would expect to happen. Of course they can do that. But when that same water type, for some reason, can spew a Scald at you and nail the 30% chance to burn you, on multiple levels, you think to yourself, man, Scald is bullshit. Anyway, thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Scald is really good, but I'd love if they just deleted it from the game again. Anyway, the takeaway from all of that, and I hope you found it convincing, was that I think that Scald is an immense flavor fail. It doesn't make any sense that almost every water type suddenly has the ability to use Scald. Scald should be a signature move. It should have a limited, purposeful distribution. Hopefully people agree. You're allowed to disagree. I've been on this for 30 minutes. I hate Scald. I don't think there's any... Well, I would hope that after 30 minutes, we've said everything there is to say about Scald.
Hold it!
Hey, post-production imported cheese here again. Shoutouts to this viewer who tried to prove me wrong by citing Naruto's Boil Release. Boil Release being an incredibly rare and powerful ninjutsu only available to a certain bloodline of ninjas who have mastered both water and fire chakra. Hey. So by trying to prove me wrong, you only strengthened my argument. However, in the interest of fairness, I will now proceed to destroy my own argument because in Naruto, ice is also a combination power. However, in my defense, it is the very first combo power we see, probably because it's not that much of a leap for us to understand. For reasons I explained in my PowerPoint. Searing Shot, which is apparently not Flame Burst. Searing Shot is a signature move. It is the signature move of Victini. Searing Shot's numbers are really good. 100 base power, 100 accuracy, 30% burn chance. Sound familiar? Not again. Makes perfect sense that a fire move has a 30% burn chance. A move that, on paper, actually has a bunch of good values, ironically never really gets used because it's outclassed by another signature move that the exact same Pokemon gets. We may as well do that now, right? How come Game Freak lets you have two signature moves? Victini's other signature move is V-Create. Why is it called Create when all it does is destroy? 180 base power physical fire move. Does come with a drawback though. It lowers your defense, special defense, same as close combat, and it drops your speed as well. However, for 180 base power, it's worth it. Does Victini use Searing Shot? No. Would other Pokemon use Searing Shot if they could? Absolutely. Almost any special fire type would love Searing Shot. Does Victini use V-Create? Oh yeah! And so does Rayquaza, apparently. Would other Pokemon use V-Create if they could? Yes. I would go so far as to say that every physical attacking Pokemon in the entire game would love to use V-Create if they could. You might think that I skipped over mentioning V-Create's accuracy by accident, but I didn't. I did it on purpose. V-Create, if you pay $776 to get a Master Knight Superior that has V-Create and Contrary, you get probably the best, obviously illegal combo of all time. People were clowning on me because, of course, my luck stat is incredible and I kept missing moves. People were saying, why don't you just click the 100 accurate move? My moves were Leaf Storm, Draco Meteor, Psycho Boost, and V-Create. Why didn't I just click V-Create, the 100% accurate move? That's why. Accuracy 95. But when used by Victini, it is actually 100 because Victini's Victory Star ability makes it perfect. Apparently in Japanese, this is V generato. So they V created a different translation. Be sure to shell smash that like button if you're somehow still here after the Scald PowerPoint. Best setup move in the game? Maybe. Plus 6 stats in 1 turn. That's absolutely bonkers. It does have a downside though, and it is a real downside. Shell Smash drops both of your defenses by 1 stage, but it gives you +2 attack, +2 special, and +2 speed. If you have 1 free turn to Shell Smash, you win in almost every case. Shell Smash is the ultimate setup move. All the speed and attack you could possibly want in just 1 turn. Completely turns Cloyster on its head from a mediocre defensive Pokemon to an unstoppable sweeper whose defense is so high that the -1 defense doesn't actually matter that much. Shell Smash does have a real downside, I don't want to downplay that. In particular, dropping your defenses makes you a lot more vulnerable to priority that can sort of bypass your speed boost. But there's no denying, any Pokemon that gets Shell Smash, no matter how whatever they may be, as soon as they discover they can break out of their shell, people are gonna go ahead and make ridiculous claims about how strong they are. Some of those claims are justified, some of those claims are not. I would say though that more often than not, Shell Smash does actually suddenly make Pokemon viable. It is that powerful. Did someone say Shell Smash? True imported cheese fans will know. The instigator of the Torterra Wars was Jacob Ferenczi. Predictably, Torterra lost the Torterra Wars, even with Shell Smash. Shift Gear. It's gonna look kind of bad because we just talked about Shell Smash, the best boosting move ever, but Shift Gear on its own is no joke. It's a better Dragon Dance. It's Dragon Dance, except you get +2 speed instead of +1, and you get that same +1 attack. I believe we did put Dragon Dance in meta-defining, and even though Shift Gear is strictly better, I don't quite think it's meta-defining on its own, simply because the Pokemon that get Shift Gear aren't really that impressive, and they don't use Shift Gear to completely wallop you the way that Dragon Dance users do. But yes, in terms of functionality, it's just better Dragon Dance. Best Shift Gear user, probably Migirna, but Migirna alone, not gonna be enough to bring this move all the way up. Simple Beam. Ironically, finding uses for this move, not so simple. I think its placement is simple. Why would you ever use this? Simple Beam changes the target's ability to Simple. What Simple does is it doubles all stat changes. Let's try and think of cases where you'd want to use this. Would you want to use this to nerf your opponent's ability? Probably not. That's definitely not worth doing. Would you use this in doubles to buff your partner? This is like a setup move. You simplify your partner, and then you have to set up further after that. Not to mention that if you're doing this in doubles, there's an ability in doubles, you've probably heard of it, called Intimidate, and now you get double intimidated? I don't think every move has to be good, has to have practical applications. I think Simple Beam is just intended to be kind of a joke move. And yeah, it is, it's bad. The implications of this are also horrifying. It's basically a lobotomy ray. Skydrop. This is a very interesting and unique move. It's kind of like Fly with some extra spice. When you fly, you're Amelia Earhart, right? Solo voyage across the Atlantic. With Skydrop, you've actually got a passenger with you. You actually take your target into the sky alongside you for that turn. This move has a ton of special interactions, some of those being game-breaking bugs. 60 base power surprisingly weak? Maybe gravity is lower on the pokey Earth, but you would expect to take more than 60 base power falling from the heavens. Oh boy. And this is only for Generation 5. The glitch has its own article! the Sky Drop glitch. We should mention this because this was fixed, but it was a really big deal. A glitch in black, white, black 2, and white 2 that occurs in double and triple battles, RIP, when gravity is used while 2 Pokemon are in the semi-invulnerable state due to Sky Drop. I don't think gravity has ever been used in the history of Pokemon, so you don't really have to worry about this happening. Due to the glitch, the move Skydrop was banned in Wi-Fi random matches starting November 10th, 2010, and lasted until Nintendo Wi-Fi connection was discontinued on May 20th, 2014. Skydrop was also banned from all official tournaments during the Gen 5 games, such as the Pokemon World Championships banned in VGC. Wow, this must have been a really big deal, because remember, they allowed you to use Primal Groudon and Kyogre. So this is what the actual glitch is. If 2 Pokemon are in the semi-invulnerable state after Skydrop is used and gravity is used, gravity will bring both the user and the target of Skydrop down, but the Pokemon that was the target will be unable to move until the Skydrop user is knocked out or switched out. Status conditions and other effects will still apply to the immobile Pokemon. I don't think I'm gonna read all of this. The main takeaway that you need, actually in America we call it takeout, it's fly, except it also takes your target with you into the invulnerability. There are some certain restrictions. You actually can't pick up targets that are too heavy. And I believe you can grab flying types and levitate Pokemon. They just don't take any damage, but you can still steal their turn. So what do you actually use this move for? Well, you would never use it in singles. It's not really worth doing. You might use this for something in doubles, not really for the damage, but as sort of a stalling, disabling effect to prevent one of your opponents from acting, while also making you invulnerable. I think somebody said in the chat earlier, does anybody use this move for anything other than evil? I'm not sure how many practical applications this move has, but there's probably some specific niche uses where Skydrop is what you need. I think it's a good niche move, right? Sludge Wave. I actually didn't think this was a Gen 5 move. I'm kind of surprised to see it here. Compares most directly to Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb is single target, 90 base power, special poison, 30% chance to poison. Sludge Wave is 95 base power special, 100 accuracy, so you gain 5 power, but it has a 20% lower poison chance, and it's also a spread move. So there are times when you would want to use Sludge Bomb, and there actually are times when you would rather use Sludge Wave. Nidoking in particular really likes Sludge Wave because it's going to be using Sheer Force, so it never gets the poison chance anyway. In that case, Sludge Wave is just better. I think Sludge Wave does qualify as a staple move. Very, very solid base power. Sometimes you want the spread, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want the extra poison, sometimes you don't. So you might swap this out for Sludge Bomb sometimes. Good move. SmackDown versus Raw. I don't watch wrestling. SmackDown is a very rare, 100% accurate physical rock move, 50 base power, with a unique effect. As the name implies, it smacks the target down and grounds them if they're a flying or levitate user. The main counter to ground types being ridiculously strong is Pokemon being able to completely dodge ground by being airborne, and SmackDown can negate their airborne attributes. The base power is really bad, so this is absolutely not an offensive move. This is no substitute for Stone Edge. This is to specifically counter Pokemon that you then want to follow up with using your ground move. So basically, if you're Landorus, you might smack things. That's about it. The grounding effect is actually really powerful, and next generation, when we get to Pokemon Z coming out soon, we'll see just how strong the grounding effect is when we get to 1,000 Arrows. Wow! 1,000 Arrows is Gen 7? Isn't Zygarde a Gen 6 Pokemon? You can't blame me for forgetting that, okay? Game Freak forgot about Zygarde too. Snarl! It's kind of like an evil Growl, except it's much better than Growl. Growl doesn't do any damage, it just drops opponent's attack. Snarl does do damage, and it drops special attack for both enemies. Snarl, or as it's known in Japanese, Bakauto, barks out for special defense drops. 55 base power, not that impressive, but that is some damage. Spread move, 95 accuracy, couldn't be 100 because then it would be too good. Hits both your opponents, lowers both of their special attacks. In singles, you would never use this, but in doubles, you absolutely would. We know how powerful reducing attack is because Intimidate is everywhere. You do have to spend a turn on Snarl, but hey, it actually does damage. Dropping opponent's special attack is not always going to be useful. Obviously, physical attackers do not care about that at all, but hey, special attackers don't care about Intimidate, so this is some way to balance that out. Really, really good. For sure, at least staples. I think you probably could argue meta-defining, depending on how much you hate special attackers. Soak! Anybody see that new series, Ahsoka? I heard it got great ratings. That must mean this move's pretty good too. No, it's not. Nicest thing I can say about Soak, it is a unique effect. What Soak does is it replaces the target's types, all of them, with water. It turns them into a water type. Now, water's a really good type, so maybe you don't want to do that. However, it's not quite useless. If you soak your opponent, you can then netball them. Because Soak wants your opponent to be a water type. So if you're not in a cave and you want to use a powerful catch multiplier, you can soak your opponents and then netball them. If you want to actually soak your opponent in a battle you're trying to win, probably not a good idea. But you could theoretically soak a steel type and then make them vulnerable to toxic, I guess. Is that worth doing? Absolutely not. One of my favorite Last Airbender characters, Sokka, just like Ong. Soak fire types to burn them? Good suggestion. I have another idea about what you could do regarding fire types switching into your water type. There's a ton of really minor things Soak could do. You could soak Shedinja. When you soak a Pokemon, they lose their own stab, so I guess they hit you a little less hard. Suddenly, Steel, Rock, and Ground types now are taking damage from their own Sandstorm. None of this is like useless, but it's pretty close. Steamroller. This one's pretty easy. During your in-game playthrough, Venipede might steamroller you. That's about it. LOL. Bug type physical, 65 base power, 100 accuracy, and it does have upside, 30% chance to flinch you. Sounds like filler to me. Pretty fun Japanese name. Hadorora, hard roller. This sort of adjective-noun combo happens a lot more in Japanese. I don't know why they do this. Let me see, I think it's in reach here. Now, we do generally try to keep things, family-friendly on this channel, but I am cosplaying as a dark type, so I gotta advise any young'uns to shield your eyes, because I am gonna show you my sausage here. Look at this. 270 grams? Long dry. I mean, yeah, I guess it is long, and it is dry. I certainly wouldn't just describe a sausage as long dry, though. Look at this! Oishikunate renewal! So they're saying it became delicious renewal, implying it wasn't delicious before. Reminds me of that Domino's ad campaign they did where they basically apologized for being disgusting and said, no, don't worry. We fixed it, it's tasty now. Apparently, if you minimize, you really get steamrolled because it auto hits and then does double damage against minimized opponents. I think that's so specific, I won't even give it a niche roll, it's just filler. Stored power. Very interesting and unique move. I think Dark types sort of stole their thunder later with Power Trip, which is a more fun version of Stored Power, but I think their effects are the same. Psychic type move, 20 base power, 100 accuracy. Wow, that sucks. Why would you ever use that? I guess we can read the rest of the entry. Stored power deals damage. It normally has a base power of 20, but gains 20 power for every increased stat stage the user has. The maximum possible base power is 860. Hey, this move's pretty good. Basically, any Pokemon that gets stored power at least considers some way that it can start stacking crazy stats. If you can do that, stored power will eventually eclipse any of your other attacking options, has been used in non-meme ways many, many times. Cosmic Power Clefable, this thing has Magic Guard, what are you gonna do? It doesn't take too many stat boosts before stored power starts being worth it. Imagine you get one Calm Mind in, you're already at 60 base power, which, isn't great, but you also got your Calm Mind boost. And then after your second Calm Mind, you're already looking at 100 base power. That's pretty good. This is a Psychic type move though, so that means that Dark types like me can completely ignore this, which does not happen with Power Trip. So Power Trip is better, although it has worse distribution. Struggle Bug. I believe this is just Infested Snarl? This is 5 base power less than Snarl, right? Struggle Bug used to be 30, got buffed to 50. And Snarl is 55 base power, although it has 95% accuracy, while Struggle Bug has 100. So the 5 points are just distributed differently. And I guess Snarl is a sound move, so it bypasses Substitute, while Struggle Bug doesn't. Yeah, they just hate bug types, but that's nothing new. For your in-game playthrough or singles, no, you would never use this. But for the same reasons that you would use Snarl in doubles, you would use Struggle Bug. Drop both of your opponent's special attack. That's worth using. If anybody can explain why this move is called Struggle Bug, I'd like to know. Japanese name is Mushi no Teiko. Insect Opposition. I can think of a better name than Insect Opposition. How about Insect?
Your magic shall not save you.
Resistance. Your magic spells can't even touch me. I lowered your special attack. We didn't cover it in the PowerPoint, but what are the themes of the bug type? Adversity, terrible stats, underdog. If you're a bug type, the assumption is that you're bad. Tail Slap. This used to be the signature move of Minccino, but it has since been expanded, so we'll just treat it like a normal move now. What are the numbers? Physical normal move, 25 base power, 85% accuracy, and it just behaves like a standard multi-hit move. 2 to 5 turns based on RNG, averages 3. Compare it to Fury Swipes, and whoa, it's strictly better, guys, so Tail Swipe's gotta be great. Even though it's no longer a signature move of Minccino, I don't think any other Pokemon actually uses this. But because Minccino has Skill Link? Or is it Technician? They would actually slap with their tail, but most other Pokemon would not. Why would you want to use a normal multi-hit move? You normally wouldn't. I guess Ambipom also would. Apparently, Apom was really good with Skill Link Tail Slap in Little Cup before it got banned. You know who else is good in Little Cup? Onyx! So, I wouldn't put too much stock in that. $5 microtransaction from Blue Crimson 217, correcting/answering one of my previous questions. Tail Slap makes Minccino an interesting choice, Technician for inconsistent burst damage or Skill Link for guaranteed damage. That is a choice you could make. I will choose to use a different Pokemon because I don't like Minccino. Techno Blast! This is the signature move of Genesect. It says normal here, but if you're using this move, it is never actually going to be a normal type move. In order to use Techno Blast, or as it's known in Japanese, Techno Busta, you have to equip a specific cassette, and then the type of Techno Blast will then match the type of the cassette. 5 PP. It's currently 120 base power, 100 accuracy, but this was buffed. It used to be 85, which was kind of sad. You would never use it at 85. At the new buffed 120 base power, I still don't think you would use it. Remember that your item slot is incredibly valuable. Mega Evolution's a 100 BST boost. They have a cost because you can't actually use your held item, which makes some Mega Pokemon literally worse than non-Megas with items. So having to use your item just to access a different coverage move, probably not worth it, even if that coverage move is 120 base power. Does Genesect actually use any of the Techno Blast flavors? Not really. What are those flavors? The flavors are normal, I guess you could say vanilla. No, you would never do that. Fire, although I think it gets flamethrower. Ice, I don't think it gets ice beam, so that could be useful. Water could be useful. Electric, I think it gets thunderbolts. and this is just a different game. For Genesect itself, Technoblast just ends up being a coverage move that it doesn't really need with too high of a cost, your item slot. If literally every Pokemon in the game could use Technoblast if they equip the correct cassette, I'm sure that some of them would, just not Genesect. Telekinesis. I looked this move up 2 days ago and I already forgot. Just gonna go ahead and do this. I remembered that much. Telekinesis is a non-damaging psychic move introduced in Generation 5. Uh-oh. So if it doesn't damage the opponent, what does it do? Oh boy. Well, this is short enough we can read everything. Telekinesis raises its target into the air for 3 turns. This makes all moves used against the target, with the exception of one-hit knockout moves, bypass accuracy checks to always hit, unless the target is in the semi-invulnerable turn of a move such as Dig or Fly. In addition, the target will be immune to ground-type moves and Arena Trap. If a Pokemon under the effect of Telekinesis is affected by Ingrain or holds an Iron Ball, it becomes grounded. But the effect to make moves targeting it ignore accuracy checks still applies. If a Pokemon under the effect of Telekinesis is hit by Smackdown or 1,000 arrows, the effect of Telekinesis disappears. If Gravity comes into effect, the effect of Telekinesis disappears from all Pokemon. The move Telekinesis cannot affect a Pokemon under the effect of Ingrain, Smackdown, or 1,000 arrows. While Gravity is in effect, Telekinesis cannot be selected. Mega Gengar, Diglett, Dugtrio, Sandygast, and Palosand cannot be affected by the move Telekinesis. Why not? Because it would look weird on their models to make them float? What? Why not? But a Pokemon transformed into one of these Pokemon can be affected. If Mega Gengar is affected by Telekinesis before Mega Evolving or receives the effect via Baton Pass, the effect disappears. The other 4 will retain the effect if they obtain it via Baton Pass. What I don't understand about that restriction is, I'd imagine the reason why they restrict it is because of like weird animation things, but that doesn't stop them from all the other weird animation things that can happen to them, right? If you Seismic Toss Dugtrio, if you manage to somehow mimic Fly with Dugtrio or something, these are situations that can happen that reveal the seedy underbelly. It's not only Telekinesis that can do it, so I don't know why they restricted it. You gotta imagine some kid tried to Telekinesis Sandygast, and then it just said that it failed and they had no idea why. It might have happened at some point in history. Telekinesis itself also bypasses accuracy checks to always hit, unless the target is in the semi-invulnerable turn of a move such as Dig or Fly. If powered up by Psychium Z into Z Telekinesis, the user's special attack stat raises by 1 stage. What? Generation 8 onwards, Telekinesis cannot be selected in a battle. May as well, right? Will anybody miss it? Okay, so what does this actually do?
Just give it to me one more time, simpler.
Your Telekinesis target then gets auto-hit by everything,
So we blow that one up.
and they count as airborne, right?
So we blow that one up.
That's what we actually need to know. Did you know that this move is not the move Kinesis? Kinesis is a totally separate move that also interacts with accuracy, except it drops the opponent's accuracy instead. It's the spoon move. I feel like there's a Japanese move where it's called Telekinesis. It's either Psychic or Confusion. Just the Psychic type is a mess. Oh no, I'm sorry, my mistake. Psychic, the move, not the type, in Japanese is Psychokinesis, not Telekinesis. Sorry. When we talked about boosting our own accuracy with Hoenn Claws and Coil, we already talked about sort of the nebulousness of manipulating accuracy. I don't think there's any context where you would actually spend a turn and a move slot to telekinesis your opponent and then make it easier to hit them. I guess you could think of it as like a team-wide accuracy buff, but like only against one target? Like, what? No. You don't need to be psychic to see that this move is a stinker. You want a use for telekinesis? Pick Rubik, pick telekinesis, and fling an opponent onto the rock that they can't get off of. That's how you use telekinesis. But you gotta be a Grand Magus to do that. Let's Volt switch things up from a move that is complete ass to one of the best moves in the franchise, Volt Switch! No surprises here. You like U-turn? Well, here's Volt Switch. It's U-turn, except a way better type in electric, which I think pretty much only in the case of Volt Switch and U-turn sometimes makes electric a worse attacking type than bug. Bug, one of the worst attacking types ever, and yet having a bug weakness is a death sentence, because U-turn is so good and is everywhere. Volt Switch has the exact same effect and base power, I think, of 70. It's special, whereas U-turn is physical, and Volt Switch does the same thing. You switch out after your attack. Which one is actually better? If you were to ask me, imported cheese, I would actually say that U-turn is better, which is the only time you'll ever hear me say that a bug type is actually better than an electric move. But part of what makes U-turn so powerful is that you can't escape it. No matter what, it's going to hit you, and there's going to be a pivot. But with Volt Switch, there is the very obvious counterplay. Any electric immunity completely stops it. And we literally call these momentum moves. So being able to completely stop momentum, I'd argue makes Volt Switch worse, even though it is a much better attacking type. That being said, this is still one of the best moves in the franchise. People make Volt turn teams for a reason. It is one of the worst feelings ever to just get Volt turned over and over and over again until you lose and you can't do anything. Guess you shouldn't have let your ground type die. Wild Charge. I believe this is electric type takedown. In Japanese, you can see that they didn't charge you anything. It's Wild Volt, so American consumers unfortunately have to pay a premium. Wild Charge, 90 power, 100 accuracy physical electric move. User suffers recoil equal to 1/4 of the damage dealt to the target. This is the saddest moment in Pokemon move tier list history. Yeah, I guess Wild Charge is a staple physical electric move. What else are you gonna use? Oh. If you want to blame someone for this, you can very clearly just blame the Pikachu line, because for some reason, they're holding Volt Tackle hostage. Pretty much every Pokemon that uses Wild Charge desperately wishes they could use Volt Tackle instead, but they're not Pikachu, so they can't. Whoops. Hope you like Wild Charge. If it's any consolation, I think earlier I described this as Electric Takedown, but I was actually wrong. It's better than Takedown because Takedown has a miss chance and Wild Charge doesn't. And finally, Work Up. I feel like there's a job search company called Upwork. Hang on. Yeah, there is. This is apparently a company called Upwork. WeWork? That's apparently something else. You never heard of Upwork, the world's work marketplace? But we're not here to talk about Upwork, we're here to talk about Work Up. Strictly worse growth. Grass types stay winning. It's okay. It gives you a +1/+1 to both your attack and your special attack, even though very few Pokemon actually intend to use both of those stats. I think the main function of Work Up is they give this to you early in the game as a TM, and this is just supposed to be a TM you can slap on all of your Pokemon, and whether they're a physical or a special attacker, they can probably get some sort of use out of Work Up. Are you going to be using this in your competitive matches to sweep your opponent? Almost certainly not. This is just strictly worse growth. Growth in most weather conditions, even negative ones, gives you the same effect as Work Up, but in sunlight, growth gives you +2/+2. So you would actually use growth seriously. You would not use Work Up seriously. Do we put this in filler? This might actually be a filler setup move. I don't know if we've ever had one of those, but yeah, this is like an early game boosting move that you then replace. By the way, how many directions can you work in? We've learned apparently you can up work, you can obviously work up, you can work out, and while you're working out, you can also work in. I imagine that's one of the more niche uses, but if you want to like share a workout machine with someone, you would ask like, hey man, can I work in? Oh, you can definitely work down, right? You can work down the list from meta defining to filler. You can work on, yeah, obviously work on a project. You can work under someone, yeah. You can work with someone, yes. Man, there's a lot of ways to work. And millennials don't want to do any of them. This language is a mess. How does anybody learn this stuff? And with that, I guess you could say, our work is behind us. Job's done. There's like a terrible mixed accent. And here is our Gen 5 moves tier list, complete with the Sweep Baby Inc. stamp of approval. If you want to try making your own tier list, you'll actually find a link in the description. Now, I am a dark type, so hopefully Synchronoise doesn't destroy the list again? Bro, it's only Synchro. It's frozen. Synced.